Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to meeting number 4 of the General Government and Licensing Committee. Welcome to committee members in attendance today, members of the public, and to the media. You can follow the agenda and debate on your computer, tablet, or smartphone at www.toronto.ca/council. The General Government Licensing Committee acknowledges the land we're meeting on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty Number 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We gather here today on the sad anniversary of the Yonge Street tragedy. We grieve the loss of the lives of 10 women and men, and we also think of the 16 people who were injured at this time last year, the first responders, and many others who witnessed and were affected by this tragedy. Today, as on each day since, we've stood together as a community, as a city, a province, and the country with many around the world who are also shocked and express their sympathies. We remember those lives that were taken and are reminded of the sorrows of their families shared by many others. I now ask everyone to rise and pause for a moment of silence in remembrance of the 10 lives lost. Thank you. And just a reminder, as members of council will be aware, there's a commemorative service today at 1:30 p.m. on Mel Lastman Square in North York Civic Center to honor the lives lost and those that were injured in this tragedy. I'm just going to go through the agenda. The speakers list is on the green sheet in front of everyone. Just a reminder, any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, I need a motion to confirm the minutes of April 1st, 2019. Councillor Holyday, all in favor? Carried. Communications and reports are in front of you as well. I'm just going to go through the agenda now. Our first item is People, Equity, and Human Rights Division overview. I think we're going to hold that staffer in a briefing in the mayor's office, and we'll come back to that one. Number 2 is apportionment of property taxes as of April 23rd, 2019, which is a public hearing, timed for 9:45 this morning. Number 3 is the annual controller's report, activities of the accounting services and purchasing and materials management division. Councillor Holyday would like to hold number 3. Number 4 is the 2018 accounts receivable write-off report. Anybody like to move that? Councillor Nunziata is moving that. All in favor? Carried. Number 5, authority request for the annual insurance program renewals in the years 2019 to 2022. Any holders? Somebody like to move it? Councillor Matlow? No? Somebody like to move it? I will move it. All in favor of the recommendations? Carried. Number 6, amendment to purchase order number 604-4338 for Toronto City Hall building envelope improvements. Anybody like to hold number 6? I'll move the recommendations in number 6. All in favor? Carried. Number 7 is the redevelopment of the St. Lawrence Market North construction contract award and amendment to project capital budget. There's speakers for that. Number 8, amendment to blanket contract number 470-20781 with Cossack Communications Incorporated for creative marketing agency services. Somebody like to move number 8? Councillor Karagianis, all in favor of the recommendation number 8? Carried. Number 9, amendments to 3 purchase orders for the construction of the canoe landing project, previously identified as block number 31, Community Center and Child Care Center, and 2 elementary schools. Councillor Holiday's moving number 9. All in favor? Carried. Number 10, award of a request for proposal 3405-17-0035 for a mobile dispatch software solution. There's deputations. Number 11 is the 311 Toronto response times. Councillor Fillion, would you like to move it? Sure. Or somebody? Councillor Fillion's volunteering. All in favor? Carried. Sorry, you want to hold? Number 11? Okay. Number 12, administrative penalty system 2018. Councillor Holiday is holding number 12. Number 13, Toronto Police Service Annual Report 2018 Parking Enforcement Unit, parking ticket issuance. Councillor Karagianis is holding number 13. Number 14 is evaluation of the use of cargo bikes in city operations. Councillor Nunziata is moving the recommendations. Number 14, all in favor? Carried. Number 15, public notices enhancing public engagement. There's deputations for that one. And number 16, composition of Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement Systems, OMERS Management and Boards. I'll move the recommendation. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we are back to, sorry. We can't. Is there anything we can do quick? I have to wait a minute.
Yeah, it's 9:42.
Yeah, I have to wait 2 minutes. Or is there something else we can?
Unless you put item, unless you put another, like item 2, 3, or 3, annual controllers report.
Okay, we'll go to item number 3, 2000. We're not there yet, Mr. Miguel, we're not there yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. Thank you. We're on item number 3, 2018 Annual Controllers Report, activities of the Accounting Services and Purchases and Materials Management Divisions. Councillor Holiday, held number 3, questions of staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Just to the Treasurer, I was intrigued by, there's a column in there about invoices that we either incurred a late payment fee or we missed out on an early payment fee. And I wondered if you could talk to me a little bit about the process around how we receive invoices into the city. Like, what happens when it crosses into our mailbox? Do we date stamp this? Do we start the clock then? Do we start the clock on the date that's written on the invoice? And maybe just a general comment on how these things go astray.
Hi, good morning. Approximately 90% of our invoices are received electronically to an email account, and those invoices are electronically date stamped and time stamped as to the when we receive them. They are then moved from the email account into electronic mailboxes for the accounts payable staff, and they work electronically from those mailboxes. Typically, we have a service level of about 5 days. There are times, depending on year-end and liabilities, where we stretch that to 10 days service level agreement. For early payment discounts, we start the time frame from the date that we actually receive the invoice, not the date of the invoice, so that we have the ability to work within the 15-day period.
And I'm sorry, I missed the number. Is it 90 or
About 90% come in electronically,
90?
85 to 90%.
So how does something go astray in terms of missing the payment period?
For
It's just an early payment invoice. So if you're typically processing these in 5 days, how is it that, what is there a pattern to how we miss them, or?
Okay, so the method of payment is through three-way match, which is the creation of the purchase order, the entry by the division, the entry of the goods receipt. When the invoice is received, it flows through the system. Often, the invoices that are not paid within the payment terms are because there's a missing piece to that. There is no purchase order, or it hasn't been approved, or the goods receipt has not been entered. So what we do then is we park those invoices in the financial system, and divisions are responsible for running their part document reports on a daily basis to take a look at the invoices that are outstanding and take the necessary corrective action. Once they do, they notify us on a weekly basis from a spreadsheet, which we then process the invoices for payment.
So can you remind me, what percentage are you hitting the 5-day window on? And is that 5 days and you cut a check, or is it 5 days?
No, 5 days of addressing the invoice received by accounts payable. So 5 days to either process it for payment, in which case it sits in the system until it meets the payment terms of the vendor, or 5 days to actually attempt to process the invoice. And if we identify that we can't, we park the invoice in the system.
So would it be your view that most of the issues where this has gone amiss has to do with the division area that hasn't done their piece in the accounting system? Did I get that right from the answer? So it's not the payment processing, centralized payment processing, it has to do somewhere else with the process?
Through the chair, Councillor, yes, that would be, it's usually somewhere in the receipt of the documentation that we take some extra time to make sure that, in fact, the payable is appropriate to be paid.
So how receptive are the division areas to dealing with matters that have gone astray? To me, this is a big deal, right? That we've missed a possible discount, $238,000. Are the divisions proactive in trying to deal with this type of stuff, or is there an escalation process? Do the senior management teams know that this is happening?
I would expect so, Councillor, that the process is done diligently. It's a very, although it's significant numbers, they are actually a very, very small percentage of the actual invoices that are in place. Like this is 0.004% of the total payments that the city makes. So most of the times it's a matter of an administrative error that a document has been misplaced, and it takes some time to sometimes track them down.
So you're confident there's an accountability process when this stuff goes wrong, that people know about it so that it doesn't keep happening again?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holyday. Other questions on this item by members of the committee? Seeing none, Councillor Holyday, did you want to speak?
No, move the item.
Okay, Councillor Holyday is moving the recommendations in number 3. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we are going to go back to our timed item for 9:45, which is number 2, apportionment of property taxes as of April 23rd, 2019. Okay. So I do have to ask if there's any speakers on item number 2. If there's anybody that would like to register to speak on number 2. Anybody to register to speak on number 2? Seeing none. We have a recommendation before us. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Holyday is moving the recommendation. All in favor? Carried. And then we're back to number 1.
Yep, she's here.
Okay. So we have a presentation from staff on item number 1, People Equity and Human Resources Division overview.
Hi.
Morning. How are you doing this morning?
I'm well, thank you. Alma Kinton, Executive Director of People, Equity, and Human Rights. You just committed the one faux pas that is not allowed. You said HR. You read the HR as Human Resources instead of Human Rights.
My apologies.
Okay. You are forgiven.
I haven't had coffee yet.
Okay. My name is Alma Kinton, and I am just here to give you a brief overview of who we are in People, Equity, and Human Rights. We are the City of Toronto's newest division. We are a combination of what used to be the city's Human Resources Division and the Equity, Diversity, and Human Rights Division. So a decision was made last year to combine both divisions, that there would be some synergies there, and we are realizing some of that. So I'm going to take you through give you a sense of who we are, what we do, and I will also be able to give you some sense of some of our related work that will be coming to this committee within the next couple of months. First of all, so what is our mission and our vision as a division? Our vision is to provide best-in-class, innovative, strategic, and practical approaches and advice to our clients, and also for us that we intend to model excellent human resources, equity, and human rights practices. So that is what we exist to do. The next slide just gives you a sense of who we are in terms of our leadership team. So the division reports directly to the city manager. I am the executive director. I have a dotted line reporting relationship with Selena Young, who is the manager of the Indigenous Affairs Office. And I have 6 directors who report to me. And they're all listed on the screen. I wanted to note John Shafter, who's not here today, who's retiring after 31 years of service next month. So he has been the director of the Organizational Development, Learning, and Workforce Planning section. Okay. So the next slide just gives you a sense of what we do and the services that we provide: employee and labor relations, employment services, equity, diversity, and human rights, organization and employee effectiveness, and we're also responsible for a safe and healthy workplace. So I'm just going to take you briefly through each of our sections and give you a sense of what we do. So the Employee and Labor Relations Division section you would all be familiar with, are responsible primarily for our relationships with our unions and our employees and our staff associations. They develop and maintain harmonious and productive relationships with them, and they administer the collective agreements and manage the collective bargaining process, and which you will know that at the end of this year, we're going to be entering into bargaining with our 2 largest unions, QP Local 416 and QP Local 79. They are also involved in bargaining with other unions. They were involved in the fire bargaining last year. And we're also providing, through shared services, bargaining support to some of our agencies and corporations, particularly Exhibition Place at the moment. And through the life of the collective agreement, the Employee and Labor Relations section is also involved in providing expert advice in issues management and conflict resolution. Okay. So the next slide just gives you a sense of the data about how we're doing in terms of performance on grievances in particular. You will see that after from a low in 2009, where the ratio of resolved grievances, so the blue bar is resolved grievances, and the orange bar is new grievances, and obviously the higher the ratio, the better. So in 2009, the ratio of resolved to new grievances was 0.78, which meant we were resolving fewer grievances than new grievances that were being filed, and that number is now down significantly. So it was up, that the ratio there was a significant improvement between 2009 and 2014, and that we continue to be in the positive, that there are fewer grievances being filed there are more grievances being resolved than new grievances being filed. So that's a good trend. And in in May or June, you will be getting a report that gives you more details on how we're doing in terms of grievances and more analysis. But in terms of modernizing, one of the initiatives that's underway is that we're in the process of doing some scoping around a new grievance management process. So it's going through the capital project process right now to see if we can get a better system to help us track how we're doing on our grievances. Okay. So the next area that I want to talk about is our employment services, and that is all the work that we do attracting and retaining skilled, high-performing, and diverse workforce to the city. We achieve this by doing outreach, recruitment, and selection. We provide support to divisions across the city in that respect. And this year, one of our key priorities is the work that we're doing on diversity and inclusion. We have had a lot of a lot of feedback from our community partners that we need to do a better job in this respect, and we've also gotten direction from council regarding that. And so we're working hard on building a team that will be specialized doing some diversity and inclusion work. We're also really focused on what we're doing in terms of next generation as we manage this moment we're in, where we have the three generations of employees. We have our baby boomers in the workplace, we've got Generation Xers, and we're also transitioning more millennials into the work. So we're doing a lot of work on modernizing our workplace to attract and retain skilled talent. In that respect, there on the next page, there is a slide that gives you a sense of one of the metrics that we track, which is the way, how long it's taking for us to fill non-union vacancies. You will see there that in 2013, the number was it was taking over 90 days, and that now we're about 60 days, so that's about a 30-day decrease. The number, when at budget, I was asked about the number, how we do on union vacancies, because most of our employees are unionized. And that's a little bit harder because the union rules, in terms of order of consideration, there's so many other factors that make it harder to kind of report that number in a way that's useful. But we've noted that that's something the council is interested in, and so we're looking at to see what we can do in that respect. And then in that respect, in terms of modernizing, one of the things that we're doing is we're working through right now the implementation of a new system through SAP Success Factors e-recruitment module that should make the process much more intuitive and an improved user experience for people applying for jobs at the city, both people applying internally for jobs and also external candidates looking for employment with the city. It will also allow us to do much more sophisticated data analysis, so that should be implemented in July of this year. Then the Equity, Diversity, and Human Rights section, which was previously a separate division, provides advice on creating accessible, equitable, and inclusive workplaces. So the section works with partners within the division on related initiatives, but also works across the organization with other divisions on how to make their service delivery, ensure equitable outcomes from their service delivery processes. And we also provide support to councillors, and we are often consulted by councillors looking to bring motions or when issues arise in their the constituents raise issues that are equity related. Sometimes we provide advice to divisions, to councillors as well, in councillors' offices. The main focus of that section is building the capacity of the TPS employees to provide accessible and inclusive services. So that section does not provide any service directly to the community, but what the work is building the capacity internally so that Toronto Water and Planning are better able to deliver their services in a way that in an equitable way. And finally, the section also administers the city's human rights complaints process and provide advice to city divisions related to that. So they do investigations, they draft the policies and ensure that the policies are kept updated, and then they also provide training. Okay. So on the next page is just some of the key service measures for the equity unit. And then finally, moving on to the organizational employee effectiveness work that we do, we lead the corporate learning initiative. So we provide training services, we support onboarding of new employees to the city. We engage in strategic workforce planning and reporting. One of the initiatives that we rolled out last year was the Workforce Information Dashboard, which we have been invited to do presentations in the States and at other forums about the dashboard. And it's really about putting workforce data in the hands of division heads so they know what's happening, what's coming in terms of retirements in their divisions, and also things like diversity and inclusion so that people can make data-informed decisions. So that's also work that's done through, and this on the next slide is just some information about some of the metrics that we track for that unit. And this is the learning event completions annually, and you will see that there has been a steady increase in the number of learning events that are completed from year to year. And in addition, we're responsible for initiatives related to promoting a safe and healthy workplace. And there are three groupings to the work. There's your operational health and safety disability management unit. There is the employee health and rehabilitation unit that liaises between employees and their medical practitioners, for instance, when employees are returning back to work from being off ill, for example. And then we also provide employee assistance program, which is counseling support to employees. And there's occupational health and safety and workers' compensation, so the work related to the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act matters. There is a lot of work being done now. This has already come up at council about the work that's being done on mental health in particular, that is an increasing focus of the work of this unit as we see an increase in the number of mental health related complaints, and we figure out how to better support our employees. So there's an active mental health wellness strategy that our division is helping lead, and we'll be providing more information about this. This is also a report that will be coming forward to this committee shortly about how we've done in the last year, and you will see that there has been an increase in the number of complaints, in the number of claims, and a lot of that is related to changes in the legislation. But we will also be telling you in that report what we're doing in response to that. So on the next slide is just some information about the annual lost time injuries approved by the WSIB, and you will see that there was an increase in 2017-2018, and we're working diligently to try to bring those numbers down. But like I said, part of it is in 2016, the WSIA created a presumption that PTSD diagnosis in first responders is work-related. So that, of course, has resulted in quite a steep increase in the number of related claims. Okay. And on modernization there is also a capital project underway to implement Quattro Safety, which is an integrated disability management system to include non-occupational illnesses and injuries. Okay. So the next slide just provides you an overview of the customer feedback. We do a client satisfaction survey. We did the last one in 2017, and this just gives you a sense of the response, that there was an overall satisfaction rate. I will note that we are diligently working our way through the client feedback that was provided in terms of opportunities for improvement, and we are working on that as we go through a service review at the moment. Okay. So key challenges and priority actions: collective bargaining. As I said earlier, we have bargaining with our two largest unions with the contracts expiring this year. So that is an increasing focus as we get the bargaining teams ready to work on that. And also, as we prepare for bargaining, although we work diligently in the hope that we will avoid a labor disruption, but we are a large organization, and so the labor disruption planning is already underway to ensure that if hopefully in the event that there is a labor disruption, which we hope there will not be, that we are prepared and that we can limit the impact on the service recipients. So we expect that in September 2019, we'll be coming forward to Executive Committee for a mandate, and that and shortly thereafter, we will commence bargaining. Okay. The other key initiative that's underway right now is the Employee Engagement Survey, which was launched last week, actually, on Wednesday. And the first time we conducted an employee engagement survey was in 2015, and we had a 43% response rate, which is not bad for the first time out, but we're really looking to improve that this time. We really want to hear from our employees, like, what are we doing, what's working, and what's not working. And so we're working, we're hoping that, so it launched last week, it closes May 15th, and we've worked really hard to get the word out there and to get ambassadors from frontline staff to really promote the survey so that we can hear from our employees and that can guide our work. Not just our division's work, but the city's work. And then with the Human Rights Office, a lot of the work is they have been, the complaints management process has been very much paper-based. And so through the capital project budget, we've obtained some money this year to get a new electronic case management system. It is a system that's being used by the Ombudsman, and it is Resolve is like the industry standard. And so we're looking to integrate that, but that will also, you'll see a trend in my comments about we're really trying to do better data analytics to be able to give the organization a sense of where the heat map, like where the issues might be. So the Human Rights Office, for instance, if we're seeing an upswing in sexual harassment complaints, it's helpful for us to be able to note that quickly, to note that trend so that we can intervene quickly. So these new systems that we're putting in place will help with that. We have an equity lens tool that's been used for the budgeting process over the last couple of years that we're really looking to promote and encourage the divisions to use as a way to analyze the equity impacts of the reports that are coming to committee and council. And on accessibility, we're working on completing the multi-year accessibility plan, which will bring us in alignment with our AODA requirements. And we've also worked over the last year to centralize accessibility compliance monitoring and reporting. Many divisions have obligations with respect to AODA, but we observed that there was no central control over how we were doing, so that's been centralized in that unit, and we've got additional capacity focused on that. So another big thing that's coming forward is the SAP Success Factors implementation, which I said earlier will be rolling out in July 2019. It will have significant impacts for how we recruit, onboard employees, and how employees manage their information. It will make it much, much better, but it is notwithstanding a change initiative, and we're working to prepare our organization for that change. I mentioned earlier that there's a mental health strategy that we will continue implementing, and in December 2019, we're targeting for the implementation of organizational wellness assessment to address workplace factors that impact employee mental health. Okay. There is also work underway on workforce transition support for the organizational design support. There is a lot of work being done around the organization, like restructuring type work, and we're realizing that the organization needs additional support in that respect. So we're working to build a unit that will be focused on organizational design to ensure that as we grow, that we're growing, and not necessarily grow, but grow and change, that we're compliant with good organizational design principles. So that's a service that we haven't provided in a dedicated way in the past, but we have just we're in the process of hiring somebody, and we're hoping to have 2 or 3 people dedicated to doing this work. And some other future challenges that the organization faces that we're working to support is the wave of retirements. We have a significant number of our employees, something like 40% of our leaders, managers and above, are eligible to retire in the next 5 years. So that creates a significant opportunity for renewal, but then it also is a challenge as we ensure that we have appropriately succession planned so that we don't lose a great deal of knowledge through that process. So we're working to support the organization in that. And then also there are operational and financial pressures that our divisions are working through, and we're working to support them in dealing with the workforce impacts of those. So subject to any questions, that is a general overview of what we do and who we are, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Akinton. Questions? I saw Councillor Holliday.
Good morning, and thank you for speaking to us today. You did bring up something in the presentation. I saw it in 2 spots, and it was the upcoming wave of retirements. And I wondered if you could tell me a little bit about succession planning in the Toronto Public Service and how that may be built into the expectations of our managers to make sure that it's done fully and robustly.
So currently, there are some tools that we have available to encourage divisions to appropriately succession plan. So there are talent assessment tools that are available. There are just some best practice data tools that we have available for divisions. And in cases, we have worked with divisions that were really facing a pressure to work with them on what a systematic process might be like. So, but we're realizing that we could provide further support to divisions. So divisions are doing it on their own. And so we are working diligently to try to provide better support with the data that we now make available to divisions through the WIN dashboard. I think it is helping people turn their mind to it in a way that I think people weren't really alert to it before. And so through that, the expectation is certainly that divisions will use that data to inform their decision-making, but could there be better support? Yes, and we're working to standardize. I think divisions are, the reality of it is some divisions are well ahead of it, some divisions are not quite where we would like them to be, so we have made that a priority to provide support to them as they do succession planning.
So just support in general for managers in the divisions. So succession planning is one thing that a manager needs to worry about. Manager needs to worry about their relationship with the subordinate employees because that's where issues start. Do you have a program to support managers, to develop them as managers, especially as the wave of retirements happen? People find themselves moving real quick through the system, but they may or may not be set up to do that job. They may have the knowledge, but maybe not the management skills. Do we develop let's call them the middle managers for now? And is there anything you need from council to help support you in this process to make sure that they're well equipped, that they've got the tools to do what they need to do?
Yes. So we do have, I mean, it is a good point that you raise about the need for us to focus on middle managers, and that is increasingly where our focus is, that we do have leadership development programs available. We have a management onboarding and executive onboarding programs. We also have the availability of executive coaching for managers as they come into some more senior leadership positions as a way to support them. But but our management, middle management is a primary focus of ours now for exactly the reason that you said, that we need to prepare them to move up as these retirements occur. So there is a leadership development program. We also have information about the competencies that will allow managers to also do a self-assessment and identify where those areas for growth are. And through the performance planners that managers complete every year, there is a development plan portion of it that we hope that we're really signaling to the organization that we want people to use that to really turn their minds to where the gaps are and helping people fill those gaps so they are positioned to move up.
Is that plan a requirement or an aspiration for a manager? Do they, to get their performance sign-off, do they have to do that type of stuff? Complete those type of plans, do the prescribed activities?
Yes. Okay. So the development plans should be completed, yes.
And I guess the last question is, do we follow, leading edge indicators? So changes in illness, the type of illness, increases in injuries or safety infractions, all of those type of things indicate larger problems in the organization. So are we watching those with centuries, and are we reacting to the data as it comes forward, going back to the senior and middle management team, bringing to their attention a change and having them adapt and make plans and do work to improve the situation?
Yes. I would say that is something that we do diligently. And I know now because I've been in this role for 3 months and I get copied on all the reports that get sent. So monthly there are reports sent to division leadership, quarterly, giving them a sense of what their data is and where we observe trends, because that's one of the things that I ask my team is, so you've sent me this, you're sending this document out, if it's indicating a trend, what are we doing in terms of follow-up? And I'm assured that there is then follow-up with the division head and the service area, DCM where necessary, and I'm also brought in the loop if where necessary. But yes, we are tracking that diligently.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holyday. Councillor Karygiannis. Questions of the deputant?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff, we really appreciate you being here. I'm looking at page number 8 of your presentation, and it says Employment Services and Attracting and Retaining a Skilled, High-Performance, Diverse, and it says managing all aspects of hiring process, outreach and recruitment selection goes on, especially the thing that catch my attention, supporting the city's commitment to diversity and inclusion. Now, 51 or 52% of our population in the city is people of different makeups, non-Caucasian, I would say. Is that the right number? It's over 50%, correct?
Of our workforce or our city?
No, of the cities,
Yes.
cities.
I
How much of that is our workforce? What is our workforce? Does that represent our workforce?
Yeah. So I can, the population of Toronto, I think it's 51.3% are racialized. Is that what you're getting at? Okay, so racialized. We're not there yet. I think that we are at about 38%, but we're actually doing analysis beyond that, that we're not just looking at overall representation, we're actually looking at the analysis of where within the organization people are, and we're not there yet, and so that is why we're focusing our attention on how we're doing and how we're closing the gap in terms of representation.
What outreach have you done to the different ethnic communities for hiring?
So we do outreach in a number of ways. People do, we provide information when we're requested, when we're made aware of events that are happening. We do a couple of job fairs where we provide information about hiring at the city. But in addition to that, we are working right now to create a dedicated unit within our recruitment team that is focused on that, on diversity and building those relationships with community partners that will actually allow us to get the pipeline into employment with the city.
Have you done any outreach with the Ethnic Press Council? Do you know if it exists?
On this?
I am familiar with the ethnic press councils. I don't know, I cannot answer that question off the top of my head. If we do advertise positions through the ethnic
No, have you
press
done any
councils?
outreach to them? Are you familiar that they do exist?
I am familiar that they do exist through my prior role in EDHR, but I'm
Okay.
not familiar with whether.
Have we done any outreach to them? Have we gone to make a presentation to them what the city's hiring or not hiring? Have we done any advertisement through their channels?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can certainly try to answer. But if we don't, I'm happy for us to.
Okay, so we have not spoken, like you yourself or anybody else in your division has not gone to speak to the Ethnic Press Council and say, listen, in the city, this is the people we're hiring, this is what we're looking for. That hasn't happened.
I've been in my role for 3 months. I have not in those 3 months, but I cannot say for sure that the division has not, but I can try to get you an answer to that question.
Well, you do have other supporting staff here. Would they be able to assist us? And if they have, when was the last
So
time you spoke to them?
I'm hearing that we do not, we do other types of outreach, but we do not. But like I said, one of the things, we have realized that this is an area that we need to focus on, and the team is working right now on an inclusive hiring program, and this is feedback that we will consider as part of that plan.
So let me ask you the last question. If an appointment was set for you in order to meet with the Ethnic Press Council, would you take that appointment and move forward and make a presentation to them on what the city's doing, what the city's not doing, in order to make sure that the word gets out there that we're looking to bump that 30% up to 50 plus?
I would absolutely take that invitation, and I will welcome it. And if you don't set it up, I will set it up myself now that you've put it on my radar.
They were just downstairs on the first floor after here. You might want to just go down there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions of the deputy? Seeing none, I had a couple. I was trying to, so in your presentation on page 11, where it talked about modernization through the implementation of a learning management system, is that the same as what you outlined on page 18? Sorry to make you flip around.
No. So page 11 speaks to the learning management system, which is the ELE, electronic learning. So that's like where people can do web-based learning. But this is a new system for recruitment and onboarding. So it's not related. But later in the year, we will be looking at to see about integration.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then on the website, it outlines, sorry, where'd my website page go? There's an accommodation policy that we follow. And how is that different than if we had a gender equity policy?
a gender equity policy.
Yeah. So on the one page, we have what's called an accommodation policy, and then there's guidelines for it.
Okay.
And within that, it talks about, one of the guidelines is gender equity and gender expression. And I'm trying to understand what the difference is between that and gender equity.
Okay. Gender equity, the accommodation policy, let me just say that first. The accommodation policy will deal with anybody who needs any type of accommodation to go through the city's processes. So you need accommodation because somebody has a disability and they need to engage in one of our processes, for sure. It may be, I mean, in the relationship with gender equity or with gender identity or gender expression, it may be that, say, for instance, somebody is coming in for an interview and they have to bring some ID, and maybe the gender reflected on the ID is not consistent with their gender identity.
Right.
That might be something that one might utilize to get accommodation or to bring the city's attention to that. So that's one way. Gender equity. When we talk about gender equity, we tend to be talking about more like pay equity and how do we ensure that gender, in terms of not necessarily the binary gender, but that people are treated fairly regardless of their gender identity. So gender equity would be covered under the accommodation policy, but typically the accommodation policy is used primarily for disability-related matters. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Other questions of the deputy? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
And then we have one deputant on this item, Mr. Miguel Avila Velarde. Morning, sir. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. As a former city employee of the City of Toronto, I'm aware of the hiring practice to include people of minorities. For the last 10 years, we have always talked about hiring minorities. And the Director of Human Rights says that we have achieved only 30%. It's a shame. It really is a shame, because we should be about 50% now, because that is the reflection of our city composition, right? Like I said before, I'm a former city employee of the City of Toronto for the Toronto Zoo, and I understand everything about human rights and accommodations and et cetera, that they're doing the best to accommodate people. You know what the problem is? It's about retaining people, the minorities that are employed by the city. We don't retain them. We don't encourage them to stay with us. You know why? Because we have a poisonous workplace. That is the problem we have in the City of Toronto. We have a poisonous workplaces, and that is the sadness in this report. We are not attacking the issue of culture in the Police Services Board. For instance, Councilor Nanciata, we have spoke many years and years and years about police culture. The so-called blue team line of the police, where they seem to protect themselves whenever they commit a crime against a taxpayer of the City of Toronto or a minority member. You remember Mr. Forcilio, Constable Forcilio. His union, his members protect him all the way to the court, all the way to the Supreme Court. He was innocent in their eyes. We need to change that culture of protection of these workplaces, so we can have more minorities in the community. We seem to protect those who abuse other people, and we give them opportunities to stay employed with the city. Last December the 5th, the City Council applied new regulations for city security enhancement. One of those security enhancement started on December the 5th last year, 2018. To my surprise and shock, Mr. Dwayne Nickel, Security Corporation, never told council members that the washrooms on the third floor were going to be locked up to members of the public. So we're talking about disability and blah, blah, blah. I don't understand why during public meetings of city council, we have to block the access to the doors of city council. I have been advised that I had to submit a letter from my doctor establishing my disability. How humiliating is that, Justice Colley? And you referred to these ladies over here that they had given you the approval, that they say it's okay, that Miguel has to show that he is what he claims to be, a disabled man of this community. I do have disabilities, visible and invisible, which my previous employer, the Toronto Zoo, did not do anything to accommodate my needs. And you know that Mr. Councilor Paul Ainsley used to be a member of the Toronto board since 2009. You know these facts. So I want to encourage you, the members of this committee, to improvise the changes to the culture in the workplaces, because it's a shame that we have up to 10 or 20 police officers sitting at home collecting money because the cases are being dealt in court, because they're having accused of criminal behavior. And that is a shame, because that's $1.6 million that can be transferred to feed our children. You know that our premier has canceled some public services for public health. We are not going to feed 600 children breakfast programs, and it's a shame. That money, instead of giving them $1.6 million for police officers to stay at home, we should give that money to our breakfast program. Those children need to have food in their stomach before they go to school. And why I say more about the issue of removing the culture, because the Ontario government has relaxed the rules for the Special Investigation Unit. They're making it so easy now for cops to get away with murder. And that is a shame. Those are city employees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Avila. Any questions of the deputy? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming in this morning. Speakers on this item?
Shane, Andrew, don't go away, Andrew Robinson.
Somebody like to move the recommendations? Receive the report? Councilor Nunziata, all in favor? Carried. Our next item is number 7, redevelopment of the St. Lawrence Market North construction contract award and amendment to project capital budget. Our first deputant is Mr. Simon Myles. And just for everybody's information, you have 5 minutes to make a presentation to the committee. Every member of the committee can ask you questions for up to 5 minutes. Once all the registered deputants have heard, we bring it into committee where we can ask questions of staff on this item and then speak individually to this item. Mr. Myles, you have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Speaker,
You can pick a microphone.
this one looks like it's on. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall summarize my letter submitted in support of the increase in the capital budget for the redevelopment of the St. Lawrence Market North to the 13.959 million and the signing of the contract to commence construction. I see 6 considerations that should be taken into account as you contemplate your decision. The first consideration, there's a long history to the market in Toronto, but 2 features stand out. Firstly, the market was established in 1803 by proclamation of the Lieutenant Governor, which set aside 5.5 acres for a public market in the then town of York. And this responsibility was inherited by the City of Toronto at the time of its incorporation in 1834. Now, secondly, while there may be some debates about the current legal responsibilities stemming from that original proclamation, there is clearly a moral responsibility to honor this commitment to provide a public farmers market. And I've been struck by the commitment of your forebears to continue to provide the market, even at times when the economics of the institution were in question. For example, at its meeting of the 21st of September 1987, the City Council reiterated such a such a commitment, and I have such documentation here, but so do you, I'm sure. And this obligation, I feel, should be honoured. The second consideration, if the city wants to honour this obligation but does not want to approve the 13.959 million, it is looking at a new design which would cut away non-market spaces such as the courts and parking and reduce the revenue from the rents over the life of the structure. And such a redesign is obviously not wise economically. The third consideration, a new design, would mean a new bidding process and add years to the completion of the market, by which time construction costs would have increased further. And thus the city would be getting less space and less income for the same investment. Again, not wise economically. The fourth consideration, a decision to ignore the moral and, I would argue, the legal obligation to provide a market would provoke, I think, considerable unrest among Torontonians. The city would have to explain why it is prepared to say goodbye to the 13.962 million already invested in the project in order to save itself 13.959 million. And conceivably, the city may face court cases and still end up having to build a market, but with added total costs. And under either scenario, it seems to me that this is very unwise in terms of fiscal management. The fifth consideration, a decision to rework the design or ignore the historical obligation, would also represent a rejection of the outcome of years of public consultation and collaboration between the city and various interest groups. That outcome, as you know, is an excellent design by a world-renowned architect for a building that is beautiful, in keeping with the spirit of the market, incorporating the latest thinking on climate-sensitive design, and expected to be a magnet for tourists. Such a rejection not only deprives Toronto of what is expected to be another iconic building, it is also not healthy for democracy. The sixth consideration, there are clear measures of popular support for the farmers' market. Witness, firstly, in 1986-87, a citizens' movement gathered 32,000 people, signatures of those people saying no to a tall glass tower that was designed to maximize land value and treat the market as an afterthought. And secondly, at its meeting of the 16th of September 1987, before the City Services Committee, that same citizens' movement had 400 citizens and representatives of every ratepayers group in Toronto fill City Hall to express their support for a farmers' market building that would put the farmers' market first and foremost. The committee and later the council of that day gave the citizens everything they asked for. Now, none of us, it seems to me, who are involved in this long process of collaboration, neither the citizens nor today's councillors, I suspect, would want to see a repeat of that process. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Myles. Questions of Mr. Myles? Seeing none. Thank you very much for coming in this morning. We appreciate your perspective. Next, Suzanne Kavanaugh from the St. Lawrence Neighborhood Association. Good morning, Ms. Kavanaugh.
Good morning.
You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yes, and it's been 6 years since I've been here last speaking about this item, so I'm
Welcome.
happy it's back on the agenda.
Welcome back.
So I'm wearing two hats today. One is with the St. Lawrence Neighborhood Association and also as a member of the St. Lawrence Market Precinct Advisory Committee. I've also sent correspondence in, and just to reiterate what Simon has said, it's time to get the shovels in the ground this summer. Would be wonderful. The budget increase that we needed is because we were on hold for 3 years. So 1 year because, and special thank you to staff for getting us uncoupled with the past contractor and to get this bid ready for the new one. We also had a bit of a surprise. We've been through some dips and turns in that when we started, because of the site plan application, to do some of the archaeological poking around, we did find some artifacts, and then we had to stop everything as per the provincial legislation to do a complete archaeological dig. And from there, is where we found our porcupine drain, and another piece of history is underway. So in essence, we just want to say thank you for this opportunity. We are looking forward to seeing the construction commence. We think that this is the right thing to do. We started this conversation, just so you know, with a person by the name of Alan Seymour, and he had this conversation with our former councillor, Pam McConnell. So this has been in our neighborhood and on our books for discussion since the early 90s. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Questions of the deputy? Seeing none. Thank you very much for coming in again this morning. Next is Marlene Cook. Morning, Ms. Cook. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, everybody else. My name is Marlene Cook. I don't have a detailed made-out speech. I speak from the heart, and I will be doing that today. I'm the organizer and owner of the Sunday Antique Market, which was in the St. Lawrence North Market for 26 years, and we now reside in the tent, which is at 125 the Esplanade. So if you don't know, you obviously know the St. Lawrence North Market has been demolished. We're in a tent, which is just behind the South Market, for 4 years, awaiting the redevelopment, which is now a hole in the ground at 92 Front Street East. So what I'm going to address to you is that we're looking at a building that needs $14 million extra. So what I want to address is that the St. Lawrence Market is the soul of Toronto. It's the soul of the city, and it has been for many years. There were 2 city halls, which were at the St. Lawrence Hall, and then there was City Hall in the St. Lawrence South Market. The St. Lawrence Market has survived wars, recessions, and many, many political battles and all sorts of things. My market itself survived different financial problems in the 80s, and the farmers market has been there for over 200 years. To put it bluntly, we have a journalist that calls my market the Church of St. Lawrence. People come to these markets. They come to these markets like they did over 200 years ago. This is not just a building. This building that you are going to decide upon is just not a building. It's a community. It's the glue that keeps the neighborhood together. The St. Lawrence Market is featured around the St. Lawrence Market building, which you are going to be deciding upon. The market was where people meet, people talk, and all of you, the councillors, we're not just talking about the locals. My over 90 vendors and my customers come from all your wards. The tourism is like, this is part of the city. If you want to go back in time and you want to see what Toronto looked like, you go to the St. Lawrence Market neighborhood. There's very few neighborhoods that you can walk into and you think that you're walking into Toronto at the turn of the century. So tourist buses are there, everybody's there. I'm just saying that this St. Lawrence North Market building, even though it's new, it's not just a building. It's the soul of the market. You can't just build a building and think that it's going to be a soul of the city. This is already ready-made, and financially, we have the courts coming in that are going to pay for it. We have TPA coming in that are going to pay for it. And if you actually look at all the documentation in 2003, when the market was voted by City Council, it had everything in there to move ahead. And it says in that document that on the main floor, the farmers market and the antique market are supposed to be the tenants in there, because it's supposed to be a marketplace. And the gentleman that gave the property in 1803 wanted it to be a marketplace and gave it to the city as such. So what I'm asking everybody is to realize that this is not just a building. You can't just make a building and expect for it to be what it's been for 200 years. And we survived what has happened over 200 years, and people still come to that building on Saturdays to shop and talk and greet and be with people, even though there's the internet, there's cell phones, there's everything. People still come to these buildings every single weekend, to the farmers and to my market. This is just not a building. It's the soul of the city. That's all I have to say. So what you're voting on is just not a building to continue.
Okay.
You're voting on the soul of the city. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming in this morning. Next, I have Marvin Creighton of the St. Lawrence Farmers Market. Morning, sir. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I first want to say wow, because this isn't what I normally do. I love farming. I am on the advisory board for the St. Lawrence. I am the third generation at the St. Lawrence Market Complex. I also sit on the horticultural committee for the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair. The Winter Fair is fastly approaching its 100 years, and so is my life and family at the St. Lawrence. Dear members of this committee, the St. Lawrence Market was established in 1803. Since this time, the City of Toronto has provided continuous support to rebuild and renovate this iconic public market. In 1921, Sidney Lawrence Googe, my grandfather, started selling goods for the St. Lawrence Market Complex. My grandfather farmed several properties in Etobicoke, including Shaver Road and Bloor, Highway 27 and the QEW, known today as Sherway Gardens. Right here, I hold a picture of 427 and QEW. The Sheridan family is right behind them. My grandfather left there when Sherway was built. And finally, Nielsen Road, which runs between Bloor and Dundas Street. In 1974, my grandfather died in a tractor accident. After the passing of my grandfather, my parents and I, at the age of 15, we started selling vegetables he grew where they were left in the field. My parents helped my grandmother keep the farm running until 1979. When we relocated in Waterdown, Ontario, in 1986, I opened my own stall, making me the third generation in our family to be selling at the St. Lawrence. When you meet me at the market, you get the privilege of enjoying fresh produce that is full of flavor, eat seasonally, buy local and safe foods, and support local businesses, including my family farm. By buying directly from the farmer, you also learn about taking what it takes to transform a seed into a full-grown plant. When buying local farmers markets like the St. Lawrence, the customers have the opportunity to ask questions about the product and where that it is not possible. I'm sorry, I'm getting nervous. About the product from the global markets. Over the years, I have built a trust relationship with thousands of families who trust that I grow their produce with care, safe herbicides and pesticides. We are what we eat. Please continue to invest in local foods, farmers, and the health of the people of Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming in this morning. Where's my friend, Mr. Myers? Morning, Rollo.
Good morning.
You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
If the
Sorry, Mike.
if the AV guy could be here,
Yeah, Mike's coming back.
I got a stick and I got a. Stick your stick.
do you have the adapter?
No, I have this on the,
Adapter.
can you hear me all right?
Yep.
So red light means on?
When the microphone's on, the light should be on.
Yeah, it's a red light.
Yes.
So sorry about the delay. It's an Apple that doesn't want to plug into your system. What I have is just a simple slideshow showing the origin of the market, the original mapping, the original land grants, and much of which you've heard from the other deputants. It would be just kind of fun to go over the evolution of the market from an open field up to a little, small building that lasted a few years. Then as was mentioned, the brick market that had the town council in it, and on and on and on. But part of which explains the enormous number of things that were dug up in that archaeological dig. I have a photograph of what you can see from Market Square looking down, and I believe that's one of the reasons the project's taken so long, is there was so much found. I think people didn't expect there to be much, but what they did find was it literally covered the site. And it was good when they, in 1968, when they replaced the 1904 market with the one we call the bunker, the one that's just been torn down. It fortunately didn't dig into the ground, so the archaeological remains were protected. One thing that's not widely known is that the south market was the same design, went to the north market. It looked like a huge railway station, a great curved building. And what you had is the blending of this one single south and north market building with St. Lawrence Hall. And the challenge on this latest discovery design is that the building that was the competition on the north market, pretty well everybody designed a building that had to take the place. So you now have a third design element, not just the north and south markets, which are identical or very similar, and then St. Lawrence Hall. Now you have a third component linking the two, and that was a very difficult challenge. And that's why I think the thing that was awarded was a clever design. If we can get this thing working, I can show you the winning design. I'm sure you've all seen, but it's a building split in two. And what I thought was so clever is that when you look up through the gap between the two buildings, you see the back of St. Lawrence Hall. If you look south, you see the front of the old City Hall. So it's a very nice way that building links the other two. Well, I suspect this isn't going to work. Anyway. Not quite sure if there's some other way to do it. I've got a USB stick.
Michael's coming back.
Oh, good. The other thing is take a different computer and put this into the computer. So there's only a few slides, so I'll run through very fast. You're all familiar with this map from 1793, the original sort of layout of town of York. They set the town as deeply in the harbor as they could to be able to protect it from Fort York. The horizontal line at the top is Lot Street, which became Queen Street, and everything above it was given or sold to people that runs all the way up to Bloor. They're 100-acre properties. But what that meant is nothing really could be developed in those lands. So the original town, the 10 blocks, was actually limited in the way it could expand. Many places expand around a point, like a river crossing or something like that. But in this case, in effect, it made Toronto, unlike many other cities, that it had to expand westward. It couldn't do much north. It couldn't go east. It had to go westward. So all these things we're going to be talking about had to happen to the west of that residential 10 blocks. So this is the Surveyor General's attempt in 1797 to bring some order into this. So what I've done is I've highlighted the market. I'm not sure if you can see them, but the little square blocks immediately to the left of the red ones, the one on the top is the church. The one at the bottom was allocated for the market. And as was mentioned, by 1804, that's what the downtown looked like. It was only one street, and that street today is called Front, but back then they actually called it King. So that picture, that painting is taken, was painted roughly where the South Market is. So you're looking along Front Street looking east. The first market, 1814. Second market, 1831. Now, as was mentioned already, this was still the town of York. So the district commissioners, who are the council members of the day, used to meet in the upper story of that building. The rest was the market. And then in 1840, I've forgotten the date, anyway, later, when they built the city hall, the central piece of that is the entrance to the South Market today. Then there was a fire, 1849, which wiped out everything except the previous building. So the entire market was lost and was replaced by St. Lawrence Hall. And I can't find a photograph of what the market looked like running south from St. Lawrence Hall, but you'll see it's a kind of a spine that runs down to Front Street. So from King Street down to Front, the St. Lawrence Hall, and then an extension. And it's hard to see, but on the right-hand side of this spine, I believe there were awnings, so those could be pulled out on inclement weather. As I mentioned earlier, the North Market initially was the same as the South Market. And you'll notice, too, that there's a canopy crossing Front Street so that things could be delivered and kept out of the rain. Now, here we are in 1959, the piece in the middle, joining the two, is being torn down. And by 1968, the North Market was torn down and replaced by the one that has recently been torn down. So here's that archaeological dig. It's extraordinary how much stuff they found. I don't think anybody was expecting this. And that's what we got. And as I mentioned, you can see up between the two wings, up to Lawrence Hall and down to the old City Hall. That's it. Thank you very much.
Questions for Mr. Myers? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Myers, for coming in this morning, and thank you for all your conservation work around the downtown core as well. I know it's appreciated by many people. Thank you. So we're now on this, sorry, we have one last deputant, Leila Batten from White House Meats. Morning. You have
Hello.
5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay. Public speaking isn't really my thing. It's more individual communication, so bear with me. I'm a merchant in the St. Lawrence Market, White House Meats. I've kind of been at the market for a long time. I was assistant manager at the Market Grill restaurant, if anybody remembers that far back. I've owned White House Meats with my first late husband for 28 years. We had the big talk about when the North Market develops. Unfortunately, Kelly has been deceased for 25, 26 years now. So that's the past. Now let's go on to now. We've lost substantial parking in the area, and dear Pam did promise me parking. That was going to be in the new building. I told her I would hold her to it. The day-to-day operations of the market are owner-operated. How does it work? We work hard all week, and then we hope to reap the rewards of our hard work on Saturdays, which includes the farmers market. I believe the St. Lawrence Market as a fraction and a whole would not be as successful if we did not have the farmers market. Many people have heard about the St. Lawrence Market worldwide. Personally, I've sent stuff to my sister that has our logo on it. She lives in Australia. Obviously, the tourists help us. They help some more than others. They help the impression of the Toronto as a whole. Not so much for us meat and fish people. However, by having the farmers market, it draws the local people, and those are the people that help support us. The customers help us, I would say the larger rent people, by area, meat and fish, help support, well, I'd say more than help support, sustain the St. Lawrence Market's south building, but north gone south, so we're middle building at this time. I don't believe that the redevelopment of the North Market should really take this long, right? It seems quite simple to somebody that just runs a business. I know what things cost. I know what needs to be done. I know at certain times. We just celebrated Easter and Passover. You get your act together, and that's how it works. The farmers market has been around for a long time. And I know us merchants that are there all the time need the support of the farmers market. The last day of my week must always be my busiest day, obviously because of the distribution of merchandise, raw meat, raw fish. I love the fish people in. I don't eat a lot of fish. I digress. So we need to have something that is now more permanent. The tent was a very short fix, and unfortunately, it's not doing so well. And rather than spend any extra money on trying to fix something that's so temporary, we need to put everything into getting the North Market built. I think I'm here probably more to answer questions for people should be asking, how is this affecting the South Market, the market that everybody in the city boasts, brags about, right? And I don't know if there's anything else to say except for, it shouldn't take this long. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Then it shouldn't take this long.
I'll ask you the question. How does it affect the people in the South Market?
Well, if the farmers market isn't there, it's a combination on Saturdays, right? It's a combination of having people come down to buy there and us. right? Obviously, if you walk through the building, you recognize Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe part of Thursday. We could use it as a bowling alley because we don't make as much, we don't sell as much, we don't make as much, we don't have as many customers. It's all geared towards one day. Sometimes in the summer, it's geared towards 2 days because people come on Friday to buy stuff to take to the cottage or to have their barbecues or whatever, right? But we've seen a decline. And it's not just a decline in dollars, it's also a decline in people coming out, right? You know how sometimes you just kind of make it move in one direction? We're going to have a real hard time making it move in another direction, right? We need the parking. My God, every time somebody says, well, I'd come down to see you, but there's no parking, right? And there is supposed to be substantial, may I use the word substantial, parking in the north building. Recognizing renovation affects everything in an area, right? But I know that we're willing to take that short-term pain for long-term gain. Not to say it will happen in my lifetime, however. I'm an optimist. You're welcome.
That was the last deputant. We're now moving to questions of staff. I saw Councillor Nunziata's hand first, and then Councillor Matlow.
Here we go again. So we've started this whole process since 2002, and the deputant's correct, like, it's taken us so long. But the question I have is on page 7. So in 2018, we approved an increase to the budget from 91 to 102, right? And now, a year later, you're asking for 13 million more. So in 1 year, 13 million, we increased it from 91 to 102 in February 2018. So, like, I really have a problem with this.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
In 2018, we've seen one of the most robust years in construction costs increasing in basically the history of what we've seen in recent history. We've seen 2% increase quarter over quarter the last 5 quarters in construction costs. The market is very hot in Toronto right now. Contractors are being selective on what they're bidding on. Also, with the tariff war with the U.S., we've seen increase in costs with steel. We've also seen increase in costs in gypsum board. And these are the type of things that have happened in the last year that we've never seen before.
So then in that case, if we know that the construction costs have increased, like, should we not, like, why do we continue having these delays? Like, why can't we proceed rather than delay it for years, and where, in fact, that you're spending millions of dollars more by all these delays from 2002 and we're 2019?
So if I may, through the chair, I just wanted to go through, what Councilor Nunziata is asking is actually a very important question. I just wanted to take you through just a small bit of the history. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. You're right, 2002 council actually approved a concept design development, right? That's what they approved. In 2009, 2010, we came in, at that point in time, the folks that were in the organization came in with a Class D design. It was about $75 million. There was really no detailed work done. Then in 2013, as the design got more specific around its cost structure, we actually came in and we asked for further, it was re-engineering coming back to certain numbers, so it was at 91. Between 2015 and 2017, about 2 to 3 years, the work around the archaeological work that a lot of these deputations were talking about was a really critical part, and it was legislative. We could not actually change that. It was work that we had to do based on the requirements. And in 2018, we went out to market, 2017, 2018. We actually, it actually failed at the end of the day. And there was elements of, to do with archaeological work that we had to actually increase by $3 million or so, another $3 million for a tender, and then we had some contingency. That was the increase between the 91 to the 102. Fast forward, we're in 2018, and here we are. Obviously, the tender did not, didn't meet the criteria. We had to go back out to the market. We're dealing with a very, very strong market when it comes to construction right now. And the bulk of this increase has a lot to do with the construction situation right now. So all of these things, archaeological, we couldn't have changed. It was work that we would have had to have done anyway, no matter what. So we're just explaining to you what it is that we're dealing with, right, and how to move forward right now. And to re-engineer this work anymore, we would not actually meet the design requirement anymore. So we've done all of that, and now we're at a point where we're saying, based on all of the work that we've done to this point, and the work with and going into market and trying to be a lot more solidifying the numbers, this is where we're at. I just wanted to actually just articulated that.
Okay. Councillor Matlow?
Would staff please tell us what are the impacts of deferring funds, in particular from state of good repair priorities to Old City Hall? In the report, it said that you don't believe that there is anything urgent that needs to be addressed now, but could you just articulate what the reality of that is?
So with respect to Old City Hall, there's a feasibility study underway right now to repurpose Old City Hall once the province vacates Old City Hall in 2022, as well as our courts moving to St. Lawrence Market North. So we don't believe this is a priority because we'll include this work, if that project goes forward, as part of the larger project of repurposing Old City Hall at that date. And that's the reason why we...
There's nothing of a more urgent nature at this point that's going to fall apart.
No, there's nothing this is non-critical work that we can postpone.
Thank you. The farmers market, along with the antiques market, are considered by most Torontonians as really the anchor uses of any future building, as they have been in the past buildings. What commitments are there moving forward to these markets that they are there for years to come?
The commitment with respect to the farmers market, as you heard from the deputants, is there to remain, and it's part of the building program that you see in front of you with respect to the redevelopment of the North Market. The antique market right now is a tenant of the current temporary structure, and there's going to be conversations and discussions going forward with respect to that reoccurring back in the North St. Lawrence Market. That will happen between staff and the Ms. Cook with respect to that as well.
When will we know more details about that agreement, given that there's a public interest in retaining both the farmers market and the antiques market?
Right. Knowing that the project will be moving forward, we'll be able to get into that dialogue with respect to how that tenancy will occur within the North Market. Right now, we've extended ourselves with the antique market for the duration of the project of when the North Market would be potentially built. So the tenancy for the temporary market with the antique market is there. Ms. Cook is running her business uninterrupted until the duration of the switch between the temporary market and the new North Market is to come online.
So when will we know more information?
Once we approve the North Market redevelopment, we'll know what we'll negotiate with respect to the area, the size, and her functions within the North Market.
Okay. And if we rejected the recommendations today, what would be the real-life consequences with respect to, would there be further delays? Would there have to be a redesign that would degrade the quality of the new building or the uses of the new building? Would somebody explain, what are the consequences if we were to reject the recommendations?
So if I may first, Councillor Matlow, and I'll turn it over to the gentleman after. I would say that if you reject this right now, the design that we have here is at risk now, because we've done all the reengineering that we could for this design, so we'd have to go back to scratch, and that would take years. Second thing is the escalation costs around construction will just, they're just going to go skyrocket. That's what we're seeing right now in the market, so it's just going to increase costs once we decide whatever the design is. And I think those are the critical ones, and you lose the essence of what the deputies have been talking about around this market itself. But I would say definitely the concern would be you would not have this design based on the work that we've been doing with the architects. And since I've been in the last 5 years, we've actually had to re-engineer this to get to this point.
Thank you.
I hope that answers that.
It does.
Okay.
I'm happy to speak to it after the questions. No, I just asked to be put on the speakers list after the questions are done. Thank you. I'm done.
Other questions of staff? Councillor Holyday?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I've got this right, it says in the report on page 10, in February 2018, following a competitive process, GMC granted authority to city staff to award a contract, on and on. Then July 2018, it was determined that Bonfield will not be able to meet the requirements of the construction contract. So I guess my question is, as a result of not going through with this in 2018, what were the costs that the city incurred? Notwithstanding the project cost escalated 12.3 million, because we talked about the cost of construction going up, but were there any direct costs? And I note something in here about $570,000 to retender. Was there anything else?
Through the chair, the only additional cost is just staff costs.
Okay, are we able to quantify those? There's some sense, is it comparable to 570,000 or is it more or less?
It's much less.
Okay, all right. So we went through a bidding tendering process that wasn't successful at the end of the day. Is there a potential for us to recover those costs from somebody?
No, through the chair, sorry, there is not. Given the circumstances around the previous contractor, Bonfield, all of their current projects throughout the province are actually being managed through their bonding company.
So the potential to recover costs, is that because of the financial circumstances of Bonfield, or is that out of principle that we're not able to do it?
It's out of principle that we can't do it because there's nothing to recover from a company that is basically insolvent.
I see. If the company was not insolvent, would we have been able to recover the costs?
That would be a question for legal to answer. I couldn't answer that because there's no case law to say, you know, if we disqualified a vendor and incurred costs. That was part of our due diligence, not to award a contractor that we felt couldn't meet the obligations of the tender process. So it was good risk management and good risk mitigation on our part not to award the contract at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holyday. Other questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers? Councillor Matlow?
I'm happy to move in support of the recommendations and tell you why. I must say that I empathize with Councillor Nunziata's frustration with I think our shared experience sitting on this committee that virtually every item regarding general government is asking for more money due to one sort of delay or another, sometimes because of a really good reason, sometimes because of a questionable reason, but there always seems to be that case. And you know, for those who care about the thoughtful use of tax dollars, it's an issue that I think a number of us want to raise concerns about. That being said, though, you know, I recognize that there are some substantive reasons for these delays that were out of the control of city staff, and for good reason. I mean, when there are architectural findings that are, you know, often by nature surprise. You need to address that, both ethically, but also because of of legislative prescription. So I get that, and I understand that that is the main reason, along with the increased costs of steel, and we can thank President Trump for that. That being said, though, this is a good investment overall. It's an incredibly important investment, as the speakers who said. I heard some very inspiring comments from a farmer who personifies generations of the market, the owner of the antique market that's beloved and valued by Torontonians and tourists alike, and business merchants and others whose life and love is in this place. But it's shared by a couple hundred years of Torontonians. I mean, this is a site that I think one of them described it as the soul of Toronto. It's true. You go to cities like Montreal that have been able to retain their old towns, Boston that have been able to retain most of the entire city, cities around the world that have been able to protect the cultural and architectural heritage of the founding neighborhoods of their cities. Cities like Warsaw that, when it was destroyed, was able to rebuild most of what was lost in the core of their city. And you go to the St. Lawrence neighborhood, it's the closest we have. I wish that we would have retained much more, and I hope that one day we can rebuild much more. But it's the closest we have to really being able to walk the streets of the origin of our community, of our city that we love, the reason that all of us are around this horseshoe here today, and this is why we're here. And we follow in the footsteps of people who came before us, who sat in the chambers at where the St. Lawrence Market, the South Building and the North Building are today. The St. Lawrence Hall, I mean, that's where our local democracy began. Along with the town hall meetings, there were people from across North America who would come and partake in the civic forum and dialogue. People like Frederick Douglass came and spoke there. I mean, it's incredible, the history that we have at this location in our city. So there shouldn't be a concrete bunker there. There should be something that we are proud of, that merits the legacy of the stories that have been told there, and should be the home of the stories that will be told in the future. So I look forward to seeing this built as quickly as possible, both to celebrate the story of Toronto, but also to respect the hardworking merchants who, like you, who need to make a living, and the people like Ms. Cook and Mr. Craig, who personify the iconic and anchor uses of that space, along with others, those of you who came to love and support and inspire us to do better. I think it's really important, though, that moving forward, that there are clear binding contracts that ensure that in perpetuity, the uses like the farmers market and the antique market are there, because that's what we know of it as, that's what we want it to be, and that's what I think most Torontonians and visitors alike expect when they go there. It would be an empty vessel without those uses. So I'll conclude just by saying that, I wish we didn't have to spend more money on it, but of all the things that we need to spend money, and of all the good reasons that have been brought forward to do so, if we delayed in any way, I think it would be an insult and an injury to all of us in this city who love this place, and for those who would see their businesses ruined and their living just out the window if we didn't move forward today.
Thank you. Councillor Holiday to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion. I'll just paraphrase it. It's just requesting that future reports on this matter have cost-saving considerations for us to look at. I thank people for coming today to speak to us about their experiences with the market. I think most people recognize it as part of the city. I understand that this has been a long time in the making. We've seen this before council, at least in my time, once before. I think it's important for this committee because we've mentioned it before in various ways, and I take note that there's 4 members of either the present or past audit committee sitting at the table here. we need to make sure that we are always considerate of the costs constantly escalating. And Councillor Matlow was correct. We do see a lot of those reports that come forward. I just think in those reports, one of the considerations should be, well, how do you save? What can you cut from the project to keep it on budget? Whether or not we choose that option will be up to the committee at the time, but to simply have that option as part of the report is important to me. I also want to make sure that we send a message to the people that we do business with, that it's not rubber stamp at this committee, that there are people that look at this carefully. We want to be making sure that every penny that goes into these projects is money well spent. And so having consideration to reduce the scope of the project should go hand in hand with consideration of increasing the project. It's true that we are obligated to build a courthouse because there's a business case to do that. There is a requirement to build a market. I understand it. Whether that's made out of cinder blocks and corrugated metal or a really fancy building or something in between is something that this committee needs to deliberate on. And having those options put before us, I think, are important as time goes on. Thank you.
Councillor Haughey, I'm not at all clear on the implications of this. Are you suggesting that the budget for the project be cut to more or less match the increased costs or some portion of the increased costs?
No, I'm not prescribing anything like that. It's just an ask that if a future report is to come, and this does not deal with the matter today. We've got numbers before us, a tender process before us. But should the market project come back to the committee, and should it be an escalation in costs, I just hope we would give consideration to a cost savings rather than just an automatic increase.
So you're talking about that there should be a report back if the costs go up beyond what we're approving
today,
which seems quite different from how the motion reads.
If that's not clear, I would be happy to take an amendment on clarification of the language, but that certainly is the intent, is if we have future reports, that consideration be given to cost savings, not just cost increases.
Yeah, I think that's not at all clear. I'm not quite sure how to amend it on the fly, but if I understand you correctly, you're saying that if costs increase beyond what we're approving today,
right,
that there be a report back to this committee, which might also suggest ways to mitigate those increased costs beyond what we're approving today. So that I don't have a problem with.
Okay.
The way it's worded, I do.
So yeah, we just tried to look at the words future reports on this. So I'm not going to presume that a future report is coming, but if it does, and that future report is for a change in the total number, that mitigations be included.
Is it possible you could just rewrite the motion? It's very difficult to amend, I think, to capture the intent you just said. I think it'd be much.
So, Mr. Chair, if you want to stand it down, we can sort out some wording on it.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
We'll stand this item down and move on to another one while we fix the motion. Okay, our next item with deputants is GL 4.10, award of request for proposal.
I had my hand up to speak.
Sorry, we're just holding this item down while,
Oh.
or do you want to speak while we? Okay, okay, we can continue on and we'll see how Ms. Cioli does. Okay, Councillor Nunziata to speak?
Yes, thank you. And just briefly, I agree with Councillor Matlow, but my point was, and I've made it clear, and it's not just on this report, but it's all the reports where there's an increase in the budget. And I understand the reasons for it. I mean, it goes back, we started this whole process in 2002. And I agree with the deputants on the historical site of the St. Lawrence Market. And I don't want to see any further delays either, because if you do, then there's going to be an increase in costs as well. And the importance of the St. Lawrence Market, in my ward, I have the West End Farmers Market that we've been running for 40 years, and which I'm quite involved in it with the BIA, and we just changed sites, and we had a new development in West End, and we're relocating the market. But how important it is, the market, to the community, and it's a destination for the community to come to weekly. Ours is only in the summer, but when we discussed the new Western Farmers Market, some of the comments that were made during the public process is that we want to have something similar to the St. Lawrence Market, because that was sort of what the community wanted to see in our community. So I do support the project, and I will not delay it any further. But let's, as it was mentioned by the deputants, let's get moving on it. Like, that's 17 years we've been working on this application and on this project, and that's a long time. And so hopefully we can get the shovel in the ground and start moving on it, and that in the future there won't be any additional costs. And I do support the motion by Councillor Holiday once he works with staff to reword it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Still works? Okay, all right. Okay, we're almost there. I just want to thank all the deputants for coming in this morning. Sorry, Councillor Fillion.
So I just wanted to thank the staff for meeting with me offline and to go over this issue in some detail. And, though it's really unfortunate to have this kind of unforeseen cost, I'm satisfied that it was it was really not very preventable. It was probably not at all preventable. And so I think we do need to move ahead. Well, I don't think we have any choice.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fillion. I think we're almost there. I just want to thank all the deputants for coming in this morning. I know this has been a project that's been a long time underway, from when we first was approved in 2002 to creating a design committee to do the work. We've had construction delays. I think one of the things, this is my third term on the government, now it's General Government and Licensing Committee. One of the things I've learned is that, old buildings with a lot of historical components to them, renovating them in this city are expensive. When it comes to large projects like this, once again, they're expensive as well. We've had some glitches along the way with construction companies. The cost of construction materials, exorbitant right now, I think is a good word to explain them, but I think all the work that's gone into this project by staff, incorporating the history of the building, the courthouses, the need for additional parking to support the vendors, I think we've gotten where we need to be, and let's move this forward. If you look at the area, as Councillor Matlow commented on, our first Parliament buildings are in that area. The St. Lawrence Market, a lot of the original City of Toronto heritage buildings are in that area. They need to be respected. I think we're doing that work and we're accomplishing it. And I want to thank staff for all their continued work as well, and for the vendors and the people that are interested in this building for their patience as we move this project forward. Councillor Holiday, I understand
Speaking of moving forward, I think we've got a revised motion that works for everyone. And so that it just inserts the words, any future reports seeking additional increased funding. And I thank Councillor Fillion for pointing out that spot of clarity that was required. Hope you all support it. Thank you.
Questions of the mover? Councillor Fillion, you're okay? You're okay? All right. Okay. Okay. Councillor Holiday's motion, all in favor? Carried. Item adopted as amended. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone, for coming in this morning. Our next item is award of request for proposal 3405-17-0035 for a mobile dispatch software solution. There's two deputants listed. The first one, Mr. Ryan Willis, Local 416 Paramedic Services Unit. Yes, sir.
Could I, on behalf of all the deputies here this morning, say to the committee how very grateful we are for your having considered it. As somebody who's worked in public policy in over 60 countries, like well here, a real reason for the questions that are asked. But I do appreciate that you came down on the right side at the end of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Myles. Thank you very much. Mr. Willis, you have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
And to echo the citizens' statements, I'll say thank you all to the city, union, management, city council. We're all here for the same reason, to make the city a great place to live. So my name is Ryan Willis. I'm the recording secretary for Toronto Paramedic Services Unit under Local 416. I've also been a paramedic in the city of Toronto for, it'll be 20 years, May 29th. So I'm going to give you a little background on what a mobile terminal is for some of you that may not know. For some of you who have not been in the ambulance before, I know some city councilors have taken upon themselves to come in and actually see the ambulance operation from our communication center down to our actual ambulances and ride it with paramedics. But for those who don't know, I'll take you through the meat and potatoes of what a mobile terminal actually is. So 15 years ago, and when I started in 2000, we used to use map books. It's very analog. You would get the call, 911 call would come over the air. You're going to a Bravo emergency at this address. This is the geocode. And you would have to take that geocode, listen to the call details, and at the same time flip back and forth on a map book between you and your partner to figure out where that address actually was. You wouldn't see where on the street it was, but you would see the street. This was basically like an analog Purley's map. So the trouble was a lot of these addresses would be in the bottom corner of the map, and you'd actually have to flip between 3 and 4 different map pages to actually locate that one individual address you're actually going to. So in 5 years after that, they upgraded the system to what we colloquially call the MobiCAD system in paramedic services. And what we have in the front of the ambulance is a computer terminal, looks like a big GPS screen, and it is a GPS. You see a split screen. So on one side, you have real-time call information coming in. As the 911 caller tells the call taker the information, the call taker will actually enter that information into the system, and we will see line-by-line updates kind of come through as the caller relays that information to the call taker. On the other side of that split screen is the actual map. So we can see the call information as it comes in, but we can also see the location of the call in real time where it is. So not only when you're driving to the call, you're aware of updates, but you're also aware of where it is that you're going. This resembles kind of early stage GPS. This is what you would have had in your car, which would have been a nice feature about 15 years ago. There's not a whole lot of layering to it. It's not configurable. And we are under the impression right now that this current system, which has been in use for 15 years, is now obsolete. The city is now looking to upgrade the system, and we welcome these upgrades, especially for the enhancements that we're led to believe actually exist. So some of these enhancements, as far as we know, will now give us the ability to flag an address. So right now, the only thing that we can see on our screen is the address history. So we can see that one particular address had 10 calls. We can see the general type of call that address had, but we don't know what specifically that call was for. We don't know if it was for somebody with a knife there before, somebody with a gun there before. We don't know if there was a loud dog, a barking dog. We can't specifically flag an address for a specific warning. So as I'm sure many of you are aware, under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, employers have the due diligence ability or the responsibility to make workers aware of hazards in their line of work. Right now, it's very difficult to make paramedics aware of specific hazards. We can only kind of make paramedics aware of generalities. I can't underline that this is basically a critical piece of infrastructure for paramedics. We are led to also to believe that the new enhancement will include turn-by-turn instructions. So the difference between paramedics and other first responders is paramedics can cover a very, very large geographical area compared to police and fire. Police really are kind of resigned to their divisions. Firefighters are really only very rarely respond outside of their station area. As an example, I work at 28th Station, which is right across, right next to Scarborough General on the north side of Lawrence, just east of McCowan. I can start my shift there and easily end my shift at Etobicoke General. Obviously, I've been doing this for a long time. The West End, I know okay. My East End knowledge of geography is a lot more extensive only because I've worked there. But the point is I can be working out in Etobicoke and have a very, very sketchy idea of where all the addresses are, the main streets, the back alleys. I'm not going to know any of that stuff. So there's times when, as a paramedic, I'm also left alone in the front of the ambulance to navigate, relate to dispatch information, and coordinate with other allied agencies. That's a big task for the driver to handle at any given time. So if you have the ability to enhance it with turn-by-turn directions, that helps me out as a driver a lot, because now I don't have to keep checking the screen to see if I'm going left or right at an intersection, up, down, left, right, so on and so forth. So what we're looking for is something that kind of resembles what you would see now in a Google Map application, where it's layered, it's configurable, you can update it more frequently. Right now, we're told that that existing system, because it's obsolete, you can't do any of those, you don't have any of those compatibilities. You know what, I think I'm done. I think the main point is that this is critical infrastructure and it needs to be supported.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the deputy? Councillor Holladay?
Just one, thank you. You brought up an interesting point about hazards. And so, did I get it right? The current system gives you some basic information about history at a location, and in particular, potential hazards. So is your understanding the new system gives you more or the same, or what?
I'm understanding it will give you the ability to more specifically identify the hazard.
Okay. In your view, how long of a history do you need? Is it 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Like, what's appropriate?
We're currently discussing that with our Joint Health and Safety Committee, because we also understand that the population in Toronto can be very transient at any given time.
Right.
And we don't necessarily need to have an address flag for eons. But we do need to be made aware of something that's recent. So we're dealing with that at our Joint Health and Safety Committee to kind of determine what's recent enough.
Okay, and so my point is, I take it there is some thought going into that, because I guess the counter concern would be is, I'm going to assume that if you have a flag come up, it potentially delays your attendance on that. You might need extra help or whatever it is. And if it's, let's say, an apartment unit that's changed hands, maybe it was the previous tenant that caused these. So do you foresee a mechanism to clear that out, or some limitation on that, so that you're balancing all this stuff out?
Absolutely. I don't know that a flagged address automatically equates to a delay. And I think that's kind of the important take-home point. It's really just that we're after the information. And the more information that we have to make a judgment about how we approach that scene, which may not be a delay, in most cases won't be, the better.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Karygiannis, questions of the deputy?
Thank you, Chair, through you to the deputy, and I want to thank you for coming in today. Would you be able to describe to us some of the difficulties that you see in the system now versus the updates that will be done, that possibly this system, the new system that we're looking to get into, will certainly erase?
I think predominantly turn-by-turn direction will be a very big enhancement that will be welcomed by our paramedic members. For the reasons that I outlined in my deputation, is that paramedics work in unfamiliar areas a lot of the time because our geographic response area is so huge. And having worked on what we call a response unit myself, you're working on your own, it's not always easy to kind of out of the corner of your eye, see if I'm turning left or right at an intersection, make the interpretation, drive, and then make that direction. With spoken word, turn-by-turn enhancements, that will greatly improve my response to the scene and safety. Now I'm not checking the screen 30 times on the way to an address.
Is the existing system that we have, does that have a GPS directions for the EMS to respond, or you just set from here to there and away you go?
It gives you an X on a treasure map, and the rest is for you to find.
So we do not have, at this particular time, in any of our vehicles, a means of shortcutting it or following what, Google Maps, Waze, or anything like that. You just got an X and just get there on your own.
That's correct.
So there's nothing that tells you that there's traffic ahead in the system today. There's nothing that gives you the shortest distance to get there. There's no intelligence that says, listen, this is the fastest way to be able to get there.
That's correct.
And if we were to do that, would you be able to, I guess, let us know, since you've been out on the road for many years, will that cut the response time drastically down?
If we had that capability, yes, I would presume so.
So right now, the response time, what is it, 5 minutes, 9 minutes for the item, the instructed, what response time do we have at this very moment?
You'll have to confirm with city staff, but I think that right now we are to life-threatening emergencies, which only make up a small portion of our calls. We are 11.8 minutes, 90% of the time.
So having that, do you estimate for that to be able to cut down by 30%, 40%? What's your estimated view?
I would estimate confidently between 20 and 30% reduction.
20 and 30%. So from 11 moments plus, we can go down to 8 minutes type of thing.
Possibly.
Okay. Is there anything else that in this system, as we're setting it in and rolling it out, is there something else that you think or you heard of the system doing? Is there anything else that we could add in order to enhance your response time, in order to assist the paramedics to be our 911?
I think that the improved configurability, because if we were using an obsolete system, we can't make changes to the software. But if this software is new and then you can make changes, I think that gives a greater benefit to the service and to the city in that you can enhance it for modern advancements.
In your view, and as part of the paramedics, how many units, we got 220 units right now?
I think so. Again, you have to check with cities.
Roughly give it. How many units do you think that should be tested? Should we just automatically switch over? Should we do 50? Should we do 10? Should we test it for a couple of months in order to work out the kinks and the problems so we don't have the difficulties that we had in the past?
I think that's an excellent point. I think pragmatically, anyone undertaking new software, particularly something that is as critical as this, we're talking about people's addresses, it needs to work, and it needs to work well, and it needs to work flawlessly.
So how many units should we be testing it at? 10 units, 20 units, as we're rolling it out?
I say if you're testing at least a quarter of the fleet or less, you're probably okay. But testing, to some extent, it has extreme value to the service.
Okay. If we're to test it, should we be testing it 24/7? Or should we pick and choose people that, how should we test it? Let me just close up by saying to you, how do you want us to test that, a quarter of a fleet, 10 or 20 cars? What is your recommendation from the union perspective?
My recommendation is that you test it with at least 10 to 20%, 24/7, with varied users. So, and by varied, I mean varied by geography, varied by work experience, varied by employment classification, part-time, full-time.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Holiday? Oh, sorry.
I already went.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next deputant, Brian Rusk, also with Local 416 Paramedic Services Unit.
Morning. Thank you very much for having me today. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Rusk. I'm an advanced care paramedic with the City of Toronto. I've been a paramedic in Toronto for 24 years. I'm currently sit as the QP Local 416 co-chair for our Fleet Steering Committee and our Equipment and Uniform Committee, and I also sit on the Divisional Health and Safety Committee. I was asked by our Commander of Information Technology to attend a demonstration of the proposed MobiCAD software and to provide feedback as a frontline paramedic and also as a health and safety overview for any foreseeable issues. As just to follow up on Ryan, the MobiCAD was put in place about 15 years ago. It was groundbreaking at the time, really helped paramedics in their day-to-day operations and speeding up getting to calls, but as time goes on, things become obsolete. So we have been using this system consistently for about the past 15 years, but it is very limited in its configurability of what we need in today's day and age. Some of the things I just wanted to highlight with the new proposed system is that it does have the 50-50 screen allocation for information to mapping. The call flagging, it has call flagging capabilities built right into the software itself. So right now, currently, for call flagging, we have to put it in premise notes, which can be buried with other notes. It can't be highlighted. It can't be another italic because of the limited configurability of the system. This would give it a dedicated tab, which would, make paramedics aware immediately that there was a flag on that. Councillor Holiday, just to elaborate on the system that we do have, when there is a call flag, it doesn't mean that we're not going into the call. It triggers what's called a scene safety assessment, which basically what we do is gather more information. Majority of the time, it does not delay going into calls. It just gives us more information on the call itself. So it's one of those ones that would make us compliant under the Health and Safety Act. It also has configurable routing to calls, so it does have turn-by-turn location. Approximately, I will have to confer, about 30 to 40% of our staff are currently under 5 years seniority and work in all areas of the city, and even myself as a senior paramedic, as Ryan said, we start on a shift, we can end up anywhere in the city. You're very good at your local area, but as you move further and further away, you become less familiar. You know major streets, but you're less familiar. This would allow us turn-by-turn directions. Right now, there's an X, there's the ambulance, and there's a straight line, and you see half the city. It really, if the call is far away from you, it does not start to zoom in until almost halfway to 3/4 of the way of the call. So you have to know that routing yourself, one-way streets, which can be difficult because one-way streets do change directions every now and again. It also has configurable call notification sound. So currently we just have a sound that is an extremely loud siren, which we've had for the last 15 years. And I have to say, even after 15 years, when it goes off, it still scares me. It's called the startle response. The new software will allow for configurable sounds and volume as well. It also has multi-layered mapping, which allows, if I'm going to, for an example, TTC station, I could click on the icon for that station and it will pull up a map of the station of where to park, where the elevator is, our best access and egress from that location. It also, they said, has the ability to be configured with traffic cameras, and there's lots of different things that it can do. So I think the configurability of the software is something that, something that would enhance our response times. It would decrease on the amount of time getting into calls, especially for public buildings that are large. We would have more direction of where to enter. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Questions of the deputy? Councillor Karygiannis.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the deputy. I want to thank you for coming this morning. Certainly appreciate your input and the work that you've done on this file with staff in all levels. Got a question for you. Did I hear you say traffic cameras?
Yeah.
Let me finish. Right now, there is traffic cameras in a lot of locations. When a bus rolls up, it turns to green. Is this something you're referring to? So as you're moving ahead, the signal is sent to the traffic camera, or whatever it is, so your access is easier allowed?
No, I was referring more to the City of Toronto traffic cameras, the live view cameras of, say, if you're going to a call, it could give you like a view of the Gardner Expressway to see if that's a feasible route to take to the call or if that's something that you should avoid. It's not something that that would be in there, but it has capabilities to link to with traffic cameras.
So if this system had the capability of sending a signal to the traffic control, like as you're coming along, let's say on Finch West or Finch East, and there's cameras there that the buses can certainly send a signal to in order for them to be allowed in, is this something that it would be a valuable tool for the ambulance to have?
Yes, but I believe that is a totally separate system. I would have to confer with the IT, but I think it's a separate system that has to be installed on the traffic camera in the ambulance.
But that's something we should look at down the line.
It would definitely improve safety.
So as we're testing this product, is this something that you would support in order for us to take a look at as part of the testing to enhance the capability of sending a signal back and forth?
Well, every time a paramedic unit has to go through a red light, it's probably the most dangerous portion of the call because people react in different ways. So if we have a green light going at everyone, it would reduce the amount of accidents in ambulances.
Okay. All right, I guess we got some marching orders to do. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Other questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in this morning. We'll move to questions of staff. Councillor Karygiannis.
Chair, I want to thank you. I had extensive consultation with staff, and I want to thank them for all the work that they're doing and all the work they're doing forward. Am I correct to understand that the contract right now, $482,000, $482,129 is for 1/4 of our fleet? Would I be correct?
Through that, yes, Councillor, you would be correct.
Sorry, what was that again?
It is correct.
Okay, so in order for us to allow you to test this, can we use part of that money, $100,000, $75,000, $150,000 as part of your contract, so we don't buy the whole thing out, but we say to the vendor, look, we're going to spend $100,000 in order to test the system out, work out the difficulties that we have. Will that be something that you'll be supportive of?
Definitely, and I will defer the more technical details to the purchasing division to support us in this effort.
Okay, anybody from staff can help us with that?
Through the chair, as part of the negotiations, we can work out a proper termination of, provision for termination of rights with respect to testing.
And in order for us to once we test it and once we're ready to go, would you be looking for an additional $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 in order to install the system in all the fleet?
So the chair, yes, we'll be looking at approximately 300 if it's for another 200 licenses in the, yeah.
Okay, so this would be licenses that we get, you'll test it out, you will put it in all the fleet, and we could be looking at roughly about $800,000. Would I be correct in that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Approximately, yes.
So have you had consultations? I mean, I've noticed that the paramedics are here today. Is this something that we're all supportive of, be it RFP, be it IT, be it EMS, be it the paramedics? Are we all in support of this new device to be added to the fleet? Should I ask of them individually?
This is my understanding that, at least from our perspective as divisional IT support, it is a very important project. It allows us, it is a life cycle situation before the enhancement. So yes, we needed to keep a system available for our paramedics and to enhance it, absolutely.
Through the chair, Councillor, speaking on behalf of corporate information and technology, yes, we are in support of this for some of the reasons stated already. It's a divisional need and priority, and especially when we're talking about state of good repair on our software, getting it to a more modernized version too.
Okay, there's a motion that we're working on right now, and I'm going to put it up, but I want to get your feedback. I mean, I know some of the staff are okay with it, but I'm going to ask this question. One is through the process of the $482,000 to allow $100,000 of that for the testing cycle. That's number one. Number two, if the testing cycle is complete, to give you another $300,000 additional in order to bring it to the whole fleet. Will that be something that be supported from staff? I think that we just want to make sure that we're clear of that when I bring the motion up.
Through the chair, yes, Councillor, I'm in support of that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and appreciate the paramedics, the front line, for coming out today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I just want to understand, is TriTech the current service provider?
TriTech is a service provider of our computer-aided dispatch system, which means the control center equipment. The version that we are using in the vehicles is also owned by TriTech, but it was developed by another company that TriTech has purchased after a number of years ago. And TriTech had their own software. And basically they phased out the previous one, and it's not supported at this point. So they own it, but they did not develop it, the one in the vehicles.
So was this procurement, did we go out seeking something new, or did we go out seeking an upgrade to what we had?
We went up, what we had was not upgradable in the sense of a regular version upgrade. What we went out for was basically a new product to replace the old one.
So this was considered new. However, I noted in the report there was only one qualified vendor. I got that right?
That's correct.
Does this vendor have other features or modules that are available, or is this it?
Sorry? Can you repeat, please?
Does this vendor have other features or modules available with its package? Or is
Yes.
this it?
Not that we did not purchase, no.
I'm sorry, I missed that answer because it's a bit
No,
noisy.
they don't.
So
The vendor has other modules, but they are not related to this particular purchase.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor, we just wanted to add a little bit more from the CIO too, just to complement what our staff members just stated from paramedics, if I may. So Rob?
Sure. Through the chair, just to kind of summarize the points that you've heard already, there was basically a software package that was purchased several years ago. Then it was no longer supported by the vendor. We then assumed the support through third parties, so managing it ourselves. Then it was time to replace the software, so a competitive RFP was issued. In response to that RFP, the only qualified response actually turns out to be the one that we originally purchased the software from, and hence that's where we are right now today.
So if we wanted to add a functionality to the system that isn't contemplated in this report, would we then have to go to another vendor, or would we have to do a layer on of another technology? And you know, what's the implication? Because I listened to some of the questions from some of my colleagues about cameras and other things. The concern I have is, are we getting into a different technology provider, and what does that mean from an architecture and a strategy point of view?
Through the chair, good question. we're in a position to, some of the comments, referring to some of the comments raised by Councillor Karygiannis earlier, that's really about data integration, and we would not be limited with the current package from doing that. It's really about moving different data that may exist in other sources and other forms to be able to optimize some of the discussion that was mentioned earlier in terms of passing data from different systems, whether it's traffic signaling systems, whether it's traffic patterns. That's all really more about data than about technology coming together.
Last question. Given these are life safety systems, is there a certification body or a set of standards? Does the province have to sign off on this thing? Because, you know, if it doesn't work or there's an issue with it, you know, potentially there's risks involved. How does that mechanism work? It's not, you know, an email software that's in the office. It's an operational type system. What is the checkboxes and what are the things that need to be certified as part of all this?
Through the chair, I'll take the initial response to that and I'll have the paramedics team add to it. We manage that typically through our contracts in terms of service level agreements and expectations and different types of response times, but that's managed through the contract. I'm not aware of any overarching body that certifies software implementations for, you know, emergency response teams like paramedics, but I'll let my colleagues respond or add to that if there's something maybe I'm not aware of.
No, there is no certification body that for this type of application. It is just the fact that there is an established number of suppliers that have a reputation in the marketplace, and they support 24/7. The levels of support are appropriate to public safety. There are some other risk management activities that we have. One of them is through the mapping material that we supply. This mapping material is city produced, city vetted. It's not from Google or other outside sources. It has the integrity of a city product, and it is verified by my team against the same material that is in front of the dispatcher. So there is, they are tied together, the dispatch and the mobile part of the product. There are ongoing audits, there are ongoing confirmation of delivery of the message. There is manual acknowledgement by the paramedic when they send the en route situation. So on top of it, we audit this thing all the time for accuracy, and we support it 24/7. So that's my answer.
No, I was thinking we understand. I appreciate the feedback. I know Councillor Halde had another question, he said.
Yes. We might need another round.
If with the indulgence of the committee, I'll ask one more, and I'll put the question the other way around. If there was an incident, an ambulance got lost, the dispatch system sent it the wrong place, and there was a coroner's inquiry, on whose desk does it stop? Is it ours because we've chosen the system? Is it the Ministry of Health because they certified us? Did somebody sign off over there? Did somebody regulate the system? Maybe to put a finer point on it, you know, what's the minimum standard? A radio mic that works for dispatch? So, you know, we meet our checkbox if we do that, and this is something better. I just want to be really clear ultimately, because we're making a choice here. Who is ultimately accountable for the system to work?
Through the chair, Councillor, we, the division, are responsible for the system to work ultimately, and if there was a vehicle or paramedic lost because of the system error, we would bear that responsibility.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So I just wanted to ask, so my understanding of the history of this, so TriTech got this as a sole source in 2002. We used the system until TriTech couldn't upgrade it any longer. We were doing the work in-house. We sent an RFP out, and TriTech won the RFP once it got through the process. So maybe, Mr. Pocheluk, I'm not sure if this is to you. So it's a 3-stage process. At the first stage, the mandatory evaluation, how many applicants or proponents were there?
Through the chair, only TriTech submitted a response to this proposal.
Only
There's only one.
TriTech did. Okay. And do you have any understanding out on the market how many companies make a system like this?
There are several companies that make systems like this. In 99% of the case, each company is aligned with its own computer-aided dispatch system. So if you went to, let's say, Intergraph, or which is Hexagon, they have their own. If you went to another company, so this is not, in general, an independent system. However, there is a very small number of companies that develop systems that are compatible with other companies' computer-aided dispatch.
Okay. Because, so on the weekend, I Googled the companies that made these systems, and there's a number of them, I guess, out there. But over the years, TriTech has bought a number of its competitors. So it seems to be the only company in the marketplace. And I'm trying to understand, why wouldn't we treat this as a sole source?
Through the chair, I think at the time, back in 2017, we weren't aware of TriTech's purchasing of market share. So when we went out to try to get a system, we anticipated that we actually might get more players involved.
Okay, all right. And then in the contract, so there's the initial period, and then there's the optional 3 years. How is the 3 years optional renewal? Is that a industry standard, or how do we arrive at 3 years?
Through the chair, we have been trying with more IT-based solutions to do a contract longer than 5 years, so that we can make sure that we recoup the benefits out of it after the implementation period. Because often we've implemented, and then we would, on a shorter term contract, we would then have to consider going back out again. This one at least gives us the options to review the market. If there's something that's changed, we can go back out earlier. But we're at least putting in the system so that we can get some benefits out of it over time.
Okay, and do we have some guarantee, or I don't know if we can have a guarantee, some confidence that, so TriTech, that we're putting all this money into the system, we're renewing it, that about a lifespan? Like the last system we sole sourced from them, it reached a point where they stopped supporting it. They seem to be the only proponent in the marketplace that had this system. So we're almost forced to go with them.
Well, through the chair, I think in a relationship with TriTech, we're going to have to make sure we understand their roadmap with respect to their technology, especially if they would, if they're going to bring something to end of life, like they did the previous product, so that we can understand what we might need to do in response to that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, speakers on this item? Councillor Karygiannis?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a motion, if that can be put up, please. Basically, the motion, it asks for us to move in a period of testing to ensure that it meets the Toronto Paramedic Services. I understand that all of you heard my comments to staff, and staff were supportive of this, but in order not to tie them down, this is a little bit more loose. We need to make sure that the system is tested. We need to make sure that once the system is tested, we can go back to the vendor and get the other 150, 170 licenses. I also understand that you also be needing that money in order to do it, but I'd rather see that that money comes forth very quickly versus a couple of years down the line. It's a system where the paramedics are supporting, frontline staff is supporting, the white shirts, if I can call it as that, management of the paramedics is supporting, and IT is supporting. So I think it's a system that it is worthwhile for us to get. It's a system that allows us to ramp up as we move forward. And I want to say for once, all three stakeholders for the item are on the table. And I want to thank them for making this possible. And I want to thank EMS staff, the paramedics, the frontline troops, as well as IT for working in this system. And TriTech is something that is probably the only source, as if you call it, Chair, but it's certainly something that we worked with. It's something certainly that, as we heard from the paramedics, the system will cut down response time by 30%. And if it's a critical call, like a heart attack or somebody that needs immediate care, if that 30% saving on the time will certainly is to save lives, it's worth the amount of money that we're going to spend. I don't know what a value in life is, but I'll tell you one thing. If it was a member of my family, I would probably estimate life to be a few $1 million, if not more. So spending $800,000, or that's in that capacity in order for us to save lives in Toronto, I think there will be a very positive step for us to do. And with that, I recommend that we support the motion.
Questions of the mover? Councillor Holladay?
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Karygiannis. Just so I understand, a proper termination of rights provision, would that be the city would terminate something, or could you explain the wording?
My understanding, and certainly want to thank staff for helping me come up with the wording, is that if it does not work, we only spend $100,000 and we move on.
So you mean we can cancel?
Yes.
Understood. Thank you.
Other questions of the mover? Seeing none. Thank you, Councillor Karygiannis. Other speakers? Seeing none. So we have an motion on the floor by Councillor Karygiannis. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item as amended. All in favor? Carried. That carries. Our next item is GL 4.15, public notices, enhancing public engagement. The first registered speaker is Ms. Linda Brett from the Bloor Street East Neighborhood Association. Doing the deputies first. Morning, Ms. Brett. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready. Do you need some help from the IT department, or you're?
Actually, if this is on, I got it. Whoops. I need help with my fingers. Okay, I'm ready now.
Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, or I guess it's afternoon now, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Linda Brett, and I'm president of the Bloor Street East Neighborhood Association. I'm here today to ask you to broaden the scope of your request to include the method of delivery of notice to condominium corporations. Currently, such notices as signed variance notices are sent to condominium corporation, not the individuals that live within the condominium. We all have individual addresses. We're taxed individually. I get an individual tax bill. I have a mailbox. My taxes are based on MPAC, but my notice goes to my corporation, not to me. This is for the sign variances is within Municipal Code 694, sign general at Section 37, paragraph F or whatever it is, page 79 states that notice under Section D may be served on the condominium corporation at its most recent address for service or mailing address as registered under Section 3 of the Condominium Act. 1998, instead of being served upon the owners of the units of the condominium development. Within our boundaries, we have several condominiums as members of our association. From a personal experience of requesting posters to be distributed and/or posted, we can estimate that on average you have less than 50-50 chance of notices that are served on the condominium in this matter being distributed or posted. Our smallest condominium building has 23 units, and you have a 0 chance of it getting to any of those units. A couple of medium sizes, 150 to 300 units with stable management, you might have a 75% chance, and the rest will be hit and miss. And that assumes that they know that the notice is going to be served on them. We had an arrangement with Councillor Wong Tam that these types of notices, and I believe it also includes committee of adjustments. There's various parts of the Municipal Act that have this particular notice provision. We had an agreement with Councillor Wong Tam to get these types of things to the neighborhood association, and with all the condos being our members, we were able to get things out to our condos. With the number of councillors you have and the number of you people you represent, I'm not sure, I know I can't get this kind of service with the councillors I have. This is a serious problem for us in trying to deal with what happens in our community with signs, committee of adjustments, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not know where else this is within the municipal code. So I'm asking you to take a look at this and try and find a way that we, within our condominium corporations, can receive the notices that everybody who is in a single-family dwelling gets through their post office. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the deputant? Councillor Holiday.
So I guess I had asked the clerks, they're just checking. Sometimes applicants have to pay for the mailing fees, as you would expect in a planning application. Would you, if the applicant was to pay for the additional mailing for a condominium, would you still advocate for the additional onus on the applicant?
Well, actually, I've talked to various departments with respect to this, and the sign department, et cetera, and they told me that it is a cost issue. It's too expensive to mail to every condominium owner. But it's not too expensive to send to the people that live in single-family dwellings. So that is their answer. I've asked one person I talked to that was in Parks and Recs, he said what he did to do this was up his application fee, up the application fee to cover this off. I talked to other people, and they said, well, the cost would be quite exorbitant for like mom and pops for signs, et cetera, so they didn't want to do that. So instead, I get penalized, not the person making the application. And I know from objecting to signs within my neighborhood that getting in there early as a resident is key to being able to have the residents' views heard. Going in once it gets to committee or council, it's too late in the game. Yeah. You really need to be in there right away. Sure. When the notice comes out, and it's 2 pages, and on the back of it, it says what conditions you can object to. If you don't get that, you're really behind the 8 ball as it goes through the process. So I'm just asking you to, because you're looking at notices. The other aspect of it is, too, is the people within condominium corporations are low in voter turnout, so now again blocking them from engaging with your offices. I know from someone that campaigned, some of the larger condominiums have about 11% voter turnout. So every time you block any kind of engagement with them, you are blocking an ability to get that vote out to vote and engaged in the community. So I'm presenting you with the problem I have, okay. And you have this request looking at notices, making them more friendly, getting residents more engaged, and I'm just pointing out a flaw that you have, that I see in the system to me as a condominium owner.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming in this afternoon now. Next on our list is Mr. Miroslav Glavich. I do the best I can to look after my constituents.
Anybody's? 5 minutes, right? Okay, can I start?
Whenever you're ready.
I have spoken this at the old GMC before. I'm still getting used to the new names and ward numbers. One thing I noticed at the Scarborough Community Council, if there's a NACO or a meeting like this, notices go 120 meters in every direction. If you're 121 meters, my company has an office in Councilor Nunciata's ward. So if there's construction in front of on the road in front of our office, I will never get a notification because I live in Scarborough. In the City of Toronto website, toronto.ca/consultation or something like this, I know there's a calendar, Google Calendar type of notifications, but the information there's too much. It's sorted, I think, by ward, by ward name and number. Most people don't know or care what ward they are. One of the things that can help, you could do on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or whatever else people are using. It gets more people out. And the number one thing, 55% of Torontonians, our language is not English. We immigrated to this wonderful city. Councillor Karagianis, for 20 years, I grew up in Agincourt. I don't live in Agincourt anymore, but Councillor Karagianis had his notifications in English and Chinese, Mandarin, Cantonese, whatever word, every single time during his election time, during his MP time, not during his councillor staff. He has at least one Chinese-speaking assistant. The biggest language in the old Ward 43, I don't know what's in the new, is Gujarati. With all due respect, Councillor, you have never sent anything in Gujarati or Tagalog or whatever. I'm sure you can find one person. The city can do a lot better. Most of the notifications don't have, if you need any accessibility issues or like that, they never mention that. You can do live stream, just like this committee is being live streamed. You know, there's free Wi-Fi that you can use on the library, well, taxpayers funded. You don't do it. The average number of people that go to these public community meetings or whatever is 20 or less. I've been to them enough. The practice, 20 versus 100,000 plus that live in Ward 24, most people don't attend unless you light the rear ends on fire. They don't care. When there was the whole Yonge Street in Councillor Fillions about the bike lanes and all that stuff, more people came from all over the city and downtown than local people. In Scarborough, you have the Scarborough Mirror. In other parts of the cities, you have other local newspapers that you can team up with, TO Star, Toronto.com, and all those. I can't remember the last time I seen a public notice in my local newspaper or Scarborough Mirror. Councillors Ainsley, Kerry Jensen, I think Holiday have a social media, Twitter. You could mention that when you watch. I don't know if Councillor Nunciata has Twitter or Facebook. I know you have the chair of my councillor has a Facebook. You could all be more engaged. I don't know if the City of Toronto has a Facebook page, group, whatever it's called, for public consultations. But you have a nice calendar and a list of consultations on the toronto.ca website. You can clean it up a bit. There's too much crap, as I call it, too much junk. Make this expression KISS, keep it simple. You can guess what the RS is. Something simple where people can go toronto.ca/consultation, a simple website, you know, and live stream. In YouTube, it takes only, in YouTube, you can, with your cell phones, you can live stream the meetings. Most public consultations are not live streams. Most people with an accessibility issue, it takes a few days to book on Wiltrans, and they can't come. There was it's called Councillor McKelvey Ainsley, a meeting about the Eglinton LRT. I only learned that you had that meeting an hour before that happened. I already had plans for something else. You know, for the most part, Councillor Ainsley does very good at his informing. He sends me like a 3,000-page email newsletter. It takes me 12 hours to read. But you can do better. Use live streaming again. I don't know, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Miroslav. Thank you very much. Our next applicant is, sorry. Yep. Sorry, I do have to move a motion. Thank you, Councillor Holiday, for reminding me.
Motion to extend?
That the committee extend its meeting past the 12:30 p.m. lunch recess to allow the committee to finish consideration of its agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Quorum's 4. We'll put a note in your... We have 3 more after this. Sorry? Keep going? All right. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carries. Okay, our next deputant on this item is Patience Abafaru. Sorry?
No, there was another deputy.
Good morning. How are you doing? You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Good morning. Hope everyone had an amazing Easter. I'm here to speak because I'm all about more civic engagement, especially amongst the youth in the City of Toronto, getting them to participate, getting them to know about more about the municipality and understanding, everything that the city provides for them. That's exactly why I'm here to amplify a lot of Councillor Ainsley's thoughts. So when we look at our city's platforms, social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram, many of the posts they make are very self-explanatory. Perhaps maybe because they are, like Twitter is a platform where you can only write so much, right? It is, however, still very self-explanatory. And of course, most posts lead to the links on the City of Toronto's website. However, they aren't very attention-grabbing, like on the website itself. And take it from someone who's coming from Generation Z. Okay. So every detail counts. I know that for a fact, and we need to make this, the city's information and updates as transparent as possible. There is very important information on the city's website and now that every resident in the City of Toronto should understand. The design on the website doesn't make things any easier for any resident. Some people don't completely care about how the city is being run, but when it comes to updates that concern them directly, they do. I, for one, know of many youth who don't even bother when it comes to anything that has to do with the City of Toronto because they aren't offered transparent, easy to read and easy to understand information. With the transformed way of viewing important information, many people will be sure to tune in for updates more than ever before. I know of citizens who don't consider English their first language, so reading paragraphs with how the city words a few items only gets them a bit more confused. And that's why I was really impressed with Councillor Ainsley's campaign, because I did notice on his flyer he had a whole bunch of languages, obviously trying to communicate with the different residents in Ward 24, which is the ward I reside in. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the information we receive on the City of Toronto's website is not enough. I'm only echoing Councillor Ainsley's statement because, and I'll quote it, because I too believe with more clarity comes more civic engagement. When we ignore these facts, we also ignore the people in the community who this is a big concern for. The people just need a bit more of understanding, sometimes in its most simplest forms. When people know better, they do better. And I stand with that for a fact, because it's common sense. Councillor Ainsley, I quote you when you said, "We live within a fast-moving environment where we are all bombarded with a great ideal of information." And I say, in a time and age where many networks markets are moving fastly, I believe the City of Toronto cannot afford to be left behind. There are so many people in the City of Toronto, and our city works for all of us. We have to remember that. And little items like this create big impact and should definitely looked more into. And that is how I'm going to conclude today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for coming in this morning, or this afternoon now.
Afternoon, yes.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Questions of the deputant? None? Okay. Thank you very much.
Have a good day, everyone.
You too. Questions of staff on this item? Councillor Nunziata?
Just a question to staff. One of the deputants mentioned the notices. I believe it was the first deputant. As far as a committee of adjustment notices, they're sent if there's condo buildings or any buildings in the area where the notices are sent. Are they not sent individually to each of the units? And also, are they not all as well sent to the local residents association as well? Is that not what we're doing?
Unfortunately, the city clerk's office does not provide the committee of adjustment processes. I'm wondering if we will just see if we can reach some planning staff to have them come down and be able to answer those questions.
Oh, that's okay. It's all right. I mean, I think, yeah, I think they do, but I just wanted to confirm that. Because it's my understanding that they do mail it to every unit. If it's a condo building, if it's a building, everyone receives a notice. Okay, that was it for my question.
Okay, all right. Questions of staff from other members? Speakers? Councillor Matlow?
I appreciate Councillor Ainsley's efforts on this, and there are many stories that I could tell about how insufficient our notices are, but I will save that for a time when we have more time. And I move a motion relating to the concerns that were raised earlier about the adequate access to these notices by individual condo owners. It's in front of you, and it's simply to ask, as part of the report, to address this concern, to make sure that it's one thing if we want to improve the quality and the way that we articulate our notices, but if they're not actually getting to the individuals, that's a bigger concern.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the mover? Councillor Nunziata?
No question, but just to speak, I do support Councillor Matlow's motion, but it is my understanding that's what they do. I mean, I hope they do. But I know it's, I know they send it, in my area they do, to residents association, BIAs, they sent out the notices. But in buildings, what I do as well is that if it's a community meeting that I'm holding that's not a public statutory meeting, is that I would send the notices to the condo board and ask them to post it up in the bulletin board in the elevators, which they've done for me, you know, if it's just a community meeting that I'm hosting. So they're very good that, you know, I guess it depends which building you're dealing with. But I think it's very important that everyone receives a notice on all public statutory meetings, and regardless of where they live, if they live in a single-family home or an apartment condo. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Karygiannis?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a motion. If staff can put it up, I'd really appreciate it. We heard what both the deputants spoke about. They spoke about the ability to have notices received in other languages. So I've got a motion then that we look at the feasibility of automatic translating public notices in the language prevalent to in the wards receiving these notifications. I do have a large Chinese population in mind, and I'm proactive with staff in order, and we sometimes help them translate and look at the notices that go out. However, this should be something that we look at and be more aggressive about in areas like yours, Chair. I believe the speaker said it's Gujarati. I'm sure that we can put something out in those words, notices that go out, and especially if there's notices that come in from Committee of Adjustment or notification for town hall meetings, that if like for new development, that this costs be bared upon by the applicant that's making that forward. But receiving notification in another language is very important in my part of the world, as I'm sure in other parts of the world, when we have something like 51% of the city, 51.3, I believe was told this morning, that are visible minorities. And when you include in that people that do not speak languages, but they're Caucasians that have come to this country, and I can tell you about part of my family, my mother doesn't speak a word of English, she's in her 80s, but if she sees something that is in another language, and especially in Greek, she will read it. That's very, very important for us to make sure that we're inclusive, and I would ask that you support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Karygiannis.
I have a question. Councillor, are you not aware that now, when the planning staff, they do send out notices, they speak to the local councillor asking them what languages they want and translate it in their notices? They do that now? Are you aware of that?
As I said through the chair, Councillor, I think this is something that they do in my ward and they do in other languages, but this is beyond just the planners. This is, we talk about the Committee of Adjustment and other notices that go out. There's notices that go out about improvements in the road. There's notices that go out to the constituents that say about work that's going to be done on the road. Those notices are not translated. Those are the notices that we should have translated in the languages that are affected, in the neighborhood that are affected, because when you got a notice that goes in my area and people look at it and it's not in Chinese simplified, people will just throw it away, not understanding that. So this is beyond and above the call.
Yeah,
this is what I'm asking.
Okay.
Councillor Holliday, question?
Through you to the mover, I just wondered if there was a unit or a bar at which you would set when you translate or when you don't. Not all communities have a single prevalent ethnicity or language. I was just wondering if there was advice, or if the councillor would consider it as a friendly amendment to remove the word automatically. So just the feasibility of translating public notices as part of the
It states in the
report.
language is prevalent, which means is the language which is pretty well spoken in that particular neighborhood.
So I've got several prevalent languages in the ward that I represent. I just wanted to know where you would
I would say,
automatically cut the line off, right?
I would say to you the first two top languages. I mean, you know, if you got a language in your part of the world, which could be Ukrainian, it should be, I'm not sure what the prevalent language is, but it certainly should be in a prevalent language.
So would you feel comfortable removing the word automatically, just to say the feasibility of translating public notices in, so we get away from the idea that there's a, that there's a cut line on how this is done?
This says as a part of the review of public notices. This is part of our review.
Okay,
So, I mean, let them review it and come back to us.
thank you.
But if he feels more comfortable with others, I'll certainly remove the word automatically, have we? But it's asking for a review back.
Good? Okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry, Councillor Karygiannis, I had a similar question, if we could remove the word automatically and put it at the end in conjunction with the local councillor or local city.
Absolutely.
Right.
The feasibility of,
Take automatically out,
yeah,
and then at the end, after notifications in conjunction,
in work with-
consultation with the local
okay,
city,
that's fine, yeah.
city councillor.
yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Because, I mean, in your area, I mean, there could be an area that speaks Gujarati, but another pocket that you want to send out, those notices might be a different language.
Yeah,
There's nobody else that knows that better than the local councillor.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good, all right, thank you. Okay. All right, and just to quickly say, I just want to thank the committee for taking this into consideration. I want to thank the clerk staff for all of the hard work that they do getting public notices out, but speaking for myself locally in a ward where I have close to over 100 different languages spoken, and two of the deputants are actually from my ward and they came in this morning. The second most prevalent language in my ward is Gujarati, which is a dialect on the Indian-Pakistani border a few years ago, and every my ward that largely is Gujarati speaking, and I was trying to get a Parks and Recreation program in the local high school for teenage girls, and I went to the Parks and Recreation Department and said I need a bilingual flyer, and I needed Gujarati, and they made an attempt at it. I actually ended up having the language in the notice sent to Pakistan by one of my constituents to make sure he could get the nuances of the language done properly or to his satisfaction that he thought the community would be happy with. That's one issue I have around the notices. I get complaints all the time from residents. They see the statutory black and white notice in the Scarborough Mirror, the newspaper. It doesn't stand out to them. I'd like to see if there's different formats that we could look at in terms of advertising, if that has to be done with the approval of the province, or if that's something that we can do so the notices stand out a little more. In terms of distribution, I think that's important as well. I'm happy to see the amendment there or the motion from Councillor Matlow, and I would like to see the report back from staff on how we can improve the notification process. Thank you. All right, so we have... I think we can take it all as a package. Sure. All right. Everything, all in favor? 2 amendments and the item is amended. All in favor? Carried. And then our next item. We're back.
If I may, speaking of languages, I was just over Easter, I was asking my Generation Z nieces if there's language that I need to learn of like what their colloquial language is, and I think that they would consider what you've done to be completely sick. And you know, I think you know they want us to be able to tell them what's the tea. So I really respect what you've done.
Thank you. Tell your nieces I thought it was lit. Our next item is number 11, 311 response times held by.
Point of order, Chair, if I may. I understand that there's a report coming back in May. So in speaking with staff, I'm moving that we defer the item for May 21st. You be okay with that? All right.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
You will have your report then? So move it for May 21st.
Okay. Any questions of the mover? Other speakers on this item? All in favor of the motion? Carried. This item is deferred until our May meeting. Our next item is number 12, Administrative Penalty System, 2018 activity, held by Councillor Holliday. Questions of staff, Councillor?
No questions.
No. Does anybody have questions of staff on this item?
I will speak.
Councillor Holliday to speak then.
Thank you. I do have a motion. I'll paraphrase, it's lengthy. It is to increase the 3-hour fine from $15 to $30. It comes via report back to this committee. And I will thank staff for helping me work out the mechanics of the motion. If I can offer some explanation to that, most of my ward, actually all of my ward is covered by a 3-hour maximum parking bylaw. There are some very, very limited areas of on-street parking. And we have some situations where people park their cars overnight, in some situations where it appears that they're not renting a parking space in the buildings where they live, and therefore parking on the street, which is not allowed and changes the character of the neighborhood. So part of the difficulty with a $15 fine is that from an economic standpoint, it's cheaper to risk getting a ticket than it is to pay the rent. Another example in the adjacent ward to me is if you want to go park near the subway station or some other place for the day, the parking rate is more than $15, so why bother? And my motion is simply just to get the fine up to be enough so that it deters people from breaking the law because it's cheaper. Staff have advised that the mechanics to do this is to come back with a report to this committee, which I will hopefully see next meeting. I believe that this is a fairly straightforward request and hope you will support it. Thank you, Mr.
Mover. No questions. Other speakers on this item?
Chair.
Councillor Karygiannis.
You do have a motion, if staff can put it on, I would appreciate it. This is something similar, and what I am asking for is to increase no stopping vehicle signage to be brought up to $100. if somebody is stopping in a no stopping, no parking zone. Also, no parking on boulevards, that is the apron. This is the part of the sidewalk between the sidewalk and the street. Right now, I believe it's $65. I'm asking for it to go up to $100. And for that, if any of you are driving down the street and there's a vehicle which is parked on the apron, this is between the sidewalk and the street. And if there's a child playing behind there and the child jumps in front, we stand to have an accident. So if somebody's parked on that apron, which apron parking is not allowed in the City of Toronto, for the fine to be increased to $100. And I'm also asking for no stopping, no parking in front of school zones. There's a lot of parents that drive their kids to school. They parked illegally in different zones, would be on the side of the school, across the school, in areas where there is a bus zone. And then my staff has worked with Councilor Naziaza's staff and certainly appreciate the input. But however, we're asking for a fine to be increased up to $150. Spoken to staff about this. They would like to consider and come back for June the 24th. Sure. Okay, if you got questions, I'll take them.
Councillor Matlow, you have questions? Sorry? Oh, speak. Okay. Councillor Nunziata, do you have questions?
Yeah, my office was speaking to your office, but as far as the schools, you're increasing it to 100. Why not 150? Because
This is no, it's 150.
Pardon?
In front of school zones, it's 150. See.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Other questions of the mover? Seeing none. Councillor Matlow to speak.
Because of the Toronto City Council procedural bylaws and its unique interpretation of the Robert's Rules of Order, I, as a member of council, don't have an ability to consult with staff at this kind of moment about the wisdom or...
This has come back, eh?
Yeah. Hold on. You won't be disappointed where I'm going to end up.
Okay.
With the wisdom or lack thereof of these proposals. So I can't speak to whether or not these are great ideas or not. I do hear that there is certainly thought from the members about why they brought these at least requests for consideration before us. So I will support those, given the fact that they are merely asking staff to report to us on, whether or not they think this is a good path forward or not. But I just want to make it clear that my vote is the request, in no way to be inferred that I've actually even had an opportunity to consider whether or not these are the things to do or not.
Thank you. Councillor Nunziata, you wanted to speak?
Yes, as the councillor mentioned, my office has been working. I do support the increase of fines to $150 in front of schools. In the past few months, I've had meetings with various schools in my ward, and where the principal and the parents are complaining about what's happening in the mornings when parents are dropping off their kids and picking up their kids in the afternoon. It's they're literally parking on both sides of the street. Kids are running across the street. They're just opening up the door. Kids are running across the street, which makes it so unsafe. And the last meeting I was at, we had a parking enforcement officer that was at that meeting, and he had a copy of the tickets that they give out. And on it specifically says that the fines are up to $150. And so what the parents asked me to do was to increase the fines, because if you increase the fines, maybe you won't have these parents parking on both sides of the street, turning it into a one-way, and people are trying to get through. This is in the morning and in the afternoon, and which is very unsafe for the children. And sometimes it takes hours for parents to drop off their kids because they're lined up, and it's so difficult. And so increasing the fines, I think, will will make a difference to these parents that continue to do that on parking, and even parking in people's driveways. And I don't know if other members of the council have that issue, but if it's a residential area, they're parking in people's driveways and blocking people's driveways just to let their kids off in the morning. You know, it's a rush. So I do support that motion, because that was one of the things that parents did advocate on increasing the fines. And these are parents, you know, at the school that are asking for the increase in fines.
Okay, thank you. All good? So we have...
As a package?
As a package, I'm fine with that. All in favor? Carried. Our last item.
Which one?
Our last item is number 13, Toronto Police Service Annual Report, 2018 Parking Enforcement Unit, parking ticket issuance held by Councillor Karygiannis.
Well, Chair, I move I would move the recommendations.
Okay. Sorry, does anybody have questions of staff on this? Sorry, I just had a couple. Are the staff here? Yep. So I'm just, first off, so just kind of based on the chart in Appendix A, and I understand in 2018 you were understaffed. I'm trying to understand how you got so understaffed, and now you're ramping the staffing complement back up. I'm trying to understand your HR processes that are in place that you didn't anticipate or have some level of anticipation that you were going to be so understaffed last year.
Yeah, we had a hiring moratorium in place.
Sorry, can you microphone?
We have the hiring moratorium in place in 2016 and 2017, which was lifted in 2018. So those 2 years of hiring moratorium did affected our staffing levels. So we started hiring in 2018.
Okay, because I'm just asking in terms of, you know, the city's on a big push around Vision Zero and dealing with it, and the chart in Appendix A, your numbers went down in almost every category over 3 years, except there seems to be a lot of emphasis around stolen vehicles. I'm just trying to understand what the emphasis is, why there's an emphasis on stolen vehicles in the report as opposed to the steady decline in 3 years over, you know, parking ticket issuance, for example.
So decrease in ticket issuance is related to, one aspect is the lower staffing levels, and others are other city initiatives, which includes pay by sell, permits. So all those city initiatives contributes to the overall low numbers year over year.
So with the new hires that you have, you're expecting the parking ticket issuance to go back up, or?
Yeah, projections for this year is overall projection is 2.2 million. So we're working towards those numbers. But as we hire, we have other challenges, like when people are hired, if they see another opportunity within the service, they switch to those positions, and we have to look for another class to rehire the additional park enforcement officers.
Okay, but you have HR policies in place now to deal with the gap in
Yes, so we are working on hiring more parking enforcement officers to maintain our enforcement levels, and also looking to deploy where the need is, like we're moving more people closer to like downtown area, so they have less time to travel to their destinations.
Okay, and then your absenteeism in short-term work went up. Is that being looked at as well?
Yes, so we are closely monitoring that, yes.
Okay.
With this year, especially with towards the end of December, there was more cold weather that also impacted those absenteeism numbers.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, any other questions of staff? No? Councillor Karygiannis, you held this item?
I move staff recommendations.
Moving staff recommendations, all in favor of the staff recommendations? Carried. Councillor Matlow, you have a motion you'd like to read?
Yes, at 12:54 PM, that the General Government and Licensing Committee pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the General Government and Licensing Committee acting under delegated authority at May 4th, held on April 23rd, 2013. All hail the chair. I just added that in.
All hail the chair.
And why not?
Okay, I can agree with that. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thanks to the clerk staff. Thank you very much. And everyone else that stayed through their lunch.
Thank you.